clever pun.
Hello and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
And I'm Mitchell Wolfe.
And welcome to DK Vine's Silver Jubilee, Mitchell.
Congratulations, Hyle. Just getting that out of the way. Not everyone gets a Jubilee.
Not everyone gets a Jubilee, no. It's like my seventh favorite X-Man, and she's not always there, Jubilee. You know what I mean? It's not in every adaptation, but this is our
2 hours talking about our favorite X-Men.
I really don't have a list. I was just kind of making that up on the fly, but that's well and good. Like, this is good banter. Good banter for DK Vine's 25th anniversary. We're live on Twitch right now. We are live streaming this episode. We're going to be checking in with the live stream as we go. And in fact, they are going to be directing some of the chat we're having. Hello to March Rose. Hello to Porygon Q, Deza Matt, John Tessier, Geek Critique, Malik, Cyber Wolf. We've got DK Buzzard. Wow. Hello, everyone. Yeah, Mitchell, welcome back to the show, first of all. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I was really excited to find out that you were electing to turn 25, Hyle. So it's just great. It's great to be part of that and be asked to be on the show to celebrate such a big week.
Yeah, such a big week that I didn't know when to quit with my Donkey Kong website. Yeah. So for those who aren't aware or can't do the maths, DK Vine was founded. We launched on August 22nd, 1999, in preparation for the release of a little game we all know, some of us love, some of us have conflicted feelings on, Donkey Kong 64. And, you know, Mitchell, you and I, we just sat down and we talked about DK Vine quite a bit last season on the Kongversation when it became my actual full-time job, what feeds me the beans, if you will, you know, as a Donkey Kong journalist. And
yeah, I believe that was for your Caramel Jubilee. A lot less prestigious than the silver, but nothing to be sneezed at either. And if we can have a nostalgic run of a nostalgic little run of memories about this Jubilee that can make up what we did last Jubilee, I think it's going to be one of the best Jubilees yet.
Yeah, well, so that's what I want to say. We talked about quite a bit. We reminisced about DK Vine. And, you know, I mentioned how between 1994, the release of Donkey Kong Country, and the launch of DK Vine, you know, almost 5 years between the two, I would, you know, sit around, I would imagine running a newsletter for Donkey Kong Country fans. That was what I can conceive of, how to reach the fans of this game, my fellow freaks. And then around 1996 and 1997, I'd even create crude homemade fanzines just for nobody's eyes but my own. It was just my own kind of play acting for what I would eventually do with DK Vine. And now here we are in 2024, and I'm doing a live podcast in honor of my website's 25th anniversary. And we've done anniversary episodes for DK Vine before on the Kongversation. Season 2, it was our 15th anniversary. Season 7, it was our 20th. And even taking the last 5 years into consideration, I feel like just sitting around and kind of spanking myself about my website, it's kind of well-worn territory at this point. It's old hat, as they say. And we just did it with our performance review episode last year anyway. So I would like to do something a little bit more laid back this time around, if you will allow it, Mitchell.
I guess, dude. It's fine.
Okay, all right. We'll be hearing messages from current DK Vine staffers as well as those in the community who have appeared on the Kongversation and our various streams. And we'll also be checking in with our live stream as we go and just sharing some happy memories and maybe some not so happy memories from DK Vine's quarter century. But we're on an ad break on Twitch, or at least according to Twitch. On my end, we are. I don't know how reliable that is. So I would like to say, before we get into it all, a real quick plug for our merchandise store, because our own Cameron Regal has designed a absolutely fantastic 25th anniversary logo for DK Vine. It sort of combines several visual motifs of our past logos and site looks, and you can get it right now on a t-shirt or a hat if you go to dkvine.com/merchandise. And this will be the logo we're using on all of our social channels throughout the rest of 2024. So if you would like to get it for yourself on a wearable, or on a wearable for your head, which is also wearable, but it's, more localized, then head to our TeePublic shop.
That is true about hats.
Yeah. They're kind of head shirts. I don't know how I feel about them, honestly.
I feel like a balaclava is like a head shirt. A hat is like a it's like to your head like what a hat is to your torso.
Yeah, it's a great analogy there, Mitchell.
Yeah.
So we've also gotten some calls on the DK Vine hotline about the anniversary, and I appreciate the well wishes. I do. I don't want to shut anybody out. Anybody who is kind and considerate enough to call in and say, good going there, champ. I don't want to do that because that's mean. But, this celebration, the 25th anniversary, I decided to string it out a little bit. I didn't want to go all in on like one massive week or one massive day of stuff, because honestly, I'm juggling too much with DK Vine, and I can't just set everything aside and say, we're just going to focus on this arbitrary number. Number go up, smiley face. I didn't want to do that. So the anniversary is going to be celebrated throughout the year, and we'll sprinkle those calls in at the top of the next couple of episodes of the Kongversation. And I should also have some other low-key anniversary stuff throughout the coming weeks and months. So be sure you bookmark dkvine.com wherever you bookmark stuff in your little devices. And make sure you subscribe on YouTube and Twitch. So, yeah. Welcome, everyone. John Tessier says Tim Hortons pizza ad is what they were getting. That's what they get for being Canadian. And I wish I would get something as localized and flavorful as a Tim Hortons ad. Usually I only get like Taco Bell.
Yeah, I actually got an Apex Legends ad, which is incredibly localized to me. So I guess maybe the internet kind of knows what they're doing a little bit.
Josh actually got a Taco Bell ad. And Apex Legends. Yeah, okay. Here's the thing. They probably advertise Apex Legends on DK Vine because the word ape is in it and the algorithm gets confused. It's my theory.
I think that's probably why we do that, yeah.
Why we do it. I forgot you're on the Twitch board.
No, dude, I work for the company that makes Apex Legends. That's what I was saying.
There's that too. Oh, okay. Well, I just assume you've got
the much closer relationship.
I assume you've got fingers in many pies. You're diversified. Yeah. Your portfolio, you anyway. We've got several of these messages, these well wishes, so to speak. So what I did was I reached out to all the current DK Vine staff, as well as several people who have appeared on the Kongversation in the past or various DK Vine streams. And I said, would you like to provide a message for the Kongversation? Basically, your theory as to why DK Vine has managed to survive like a cockroach for 25 years. And most people got back to me. A few people weren't able to record a message in time. And that's fine. I hold no ill will to those of you who couldn't get them in. But we got in more than I thought. I cast a wide net, and I pretty
really
much
collected some fish.
Yeah. I pretty much got about 95% responses. So let's start playing these, Mitchell. We're going to play.
Quick, before we do, you said cockroach earlier.
Yeah.
So would you rather find in your attic 1,000 cockroaches or a human stranger?
1,000 cockroaches for sure.
I think I would rather find a human stranger.
The thing about a cockroach is I just put my feet up and I feel protected. With a human stranger, there's that unpredictability factor. I don't know where they're going to go. If I zig, they might zag.
You put your feet up, you're going to be on the ground at some point. Gravity is active in your attic.
Well, I mean, I'll just teach myself parkour then. There are ways to get around the cockroaches. With a human, I don't know how to deal with human, hence the Donkey Kong journalism.
I think that if you find 1,000 cockroaches, you gotta burn all your food. You need to get a hotel somewhere else while you tent your house. If you don't, just go ahead and go the extra mile and burn your house down. If I find a human, like, yeah, pretty scary, pretty unhappy with that, but I can fight them with my massive strength and just win, and then the problem's over.
See, I hate food, so basically the cockroaches really have nothing to gain from inhabiting my attic.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So anyway, March Rose says human for sure. John Tessier concurs. I'd rather find a stranger. Wow, I guess I'm alone here. Alone in the dark with the cockroaches.
It could go either way. I understand both perspectives, but I've just got my opinion, and, that's politics.
That's just politics. All right, let's hear from this first well-wisher, this messenger. And here's the thing about this. Here's a little gimmick I've devised for this, Mitchell. I have not listened to any of these ahead of time. I know who they're from, but I have not actually taken the time to sit down and listen to them. So they could be screaming profanities for all I know. Mm-hmm. There's a danger factor to all of this. So fingers crossed that they're going to be nice and I won't start crying afterwards. But that possibility remains. And that's what's going to keep people invested in this. Okay, let's play the first message.
DKVine.com. So you come to me, Jeff Onan from DKVine.com. You come to me to ask me about what I myself would say about you on your 25th anniversary of website. Well, let me tell you, I have a lot to say, but I have to condense it because I don't have much time or know what I want to say. So I'll tell you this. I have a lot of memories on dkvine.com, the website. It's the first time I saw a goatee. First time I saw a website. That's probably not true, but it was one of the early ones. I first browsed dkvine.com on the internet browser disk that you could put into your Sega Dreamcast, which, of course, had a LAN adapter to plug into the phone. I forgot where I was going with this. Happy birthday?
Well, there's nowhere to go but up from that. Thank you, Jeff. Freezer says you got a talking cockroach to record this.
Jeff just pulled the ultimate prank in that when I clicked that MP3 file to listen to it alongside you, because I can't hear what goes on in the show unless I do it on my computer.
Yeah.
The MP3 file says, this is 4 minutes and 15 seconds. And then it gets to like 1 minute. And then it's like, no, it's over. And it just jumps to the like scroller jumps to the end of the 4 minutes and 15 seconds.
So I say Jeff is a god of lies. Jeff is one of my best friends. I love Jeff, but Jeff lies constantly. Jeff creates all sorts of misconceptions and false statements, and I never really know what's going on with Jeff, but I can tell you that Jeff has in the past shared that goatee story, so I am keen to believe that actually somebody on the DK Vine forum exposed young Jeff to the infamous internet image goatee, and I apologize to young Jeff. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I actually know exactly who did it too, and which makes it sound like it was me. It was not. We can't bring up this particular name on this podcast anymore. But yeah, I do know that's true, and I also know for a fact that Jeff was being truthful about, because you're right. We should seriously just doubt Jeff, but he was being truthful about the Dreamcast Internet Explorer disc.
Yeah.
Or not Internet Explorer, probably, but like some browser. I had a similar thing much later in technological history when I was working in college at a general store. We had iPads as cash registers that had like little adapters that you plug into the like 3.5 millimeter headphone jack that reads credit cards, and I would browse the DK Vine forum a lot on those iPads when business was slow, to the point where I got in trouble once because when you start a new tab on one of those iPads, it says like, you want to go to your most frequented websites, and like DK Vine was number one. And so they could tell I was not doing work at work.
Wouldn't have been a problem had there not been all the images of Goatsy just waiting on the forum.
Well, it was a cool store.
Hello, we've got some new arrivals in the live stream, or arrivals I haven't mentioned. Hello to Trainer Derek. Hello to Cameron that's joined us. Hello, Cameron. We've got Me Muppet with the pants dance. Hello, Me Muppet. Hello to Steve from Off a Rare Gamer. Josh says, see, I never bookmarked DK Vine at all because I started going there so long ago that my browser didn't have bookmarks. I just always stayed in the habit of typing in the URL. It's a very short, succinct URL, so it's snappy in that convenient sort of way.
Are you a bookmarks guy? Do you use a lot of bookmarks?
Not anymore. I basically, I mean, ever since browsers have had the ability to, you just like type in one letter and it just pulls up everything that you frequent. I don't really have the need. On my phone, I have bookmarks because it's just easier that way. But when I'm actually on my computer, no, I just type everything in, or just allow my browser's memory to do the work for me.
Yeah, I have the same kind of deal.
I do have like work bookmarks, like everything for DK Vine is just a button click away, you know, for efficiency's sake. That's a life hack, Mitchell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on my work stuff, I use a lot of bookmarks because I need to keep track of a lot of websites. But for my personal computer and my personal computing,
because you're on the Twitch board,
the wind be my guide.
And that's a good way to live. I'm not a planner. I don't like to plan things, hence this episode. I really just like to wake up and see where the day takes me. That's basically the best way to live if you have chronic anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I agree.
Why don't we go ahead and play our second message? Because like I said, we got quite a few there, Mitchell, and I also want to get into some memories as well. So
yeah, what do you think about Jeff's one? Like a 6 out of 10?
I'm not going to rate the messages. I will say, though, that it's about what I expected from Jeff. When you ask people, these can be sincere, but they don't have to be sincere. I knew Jeff wasn't going to necessarily be sincere. There's going to be like a little kernel of sincerity in there.
He told us at least two true facts about the Goatsy and about, because it is kind of wild that you can DM anyone on the forum a picture or a link to a picture. Even today, I think that's so much power that we have at our digital fingertips.
Yeah, the internet was probably a mistake, but here we are. There's no going back. No putting the genie back in that bottle. The toothpaste is out of the tube. All right, let's play our second well-wishing messenger.
Hi, David here. So, how is DK Vine still a thing after 25 years? Well, it's kind of my fault. Back in 2002, the entire staff quit, so a new staff took over to do the same thing that would be just as well regarded. You know, like it's Saturday Night Live in 1980. Oh, and Microsoft bought Rare, so we all needed a place to talk about that. So it was up to me and some other guys who would probably rather not remind the world of that Donkey Kong site they ran as teenagers. In a time before social media, we gave the community a place to complain about the Xbox, complain about Donkey Konga, and of course complain about the new staff. We kept the community going until that fateful day in 2004 when Hyle asked me, hey, can I have my site back? And I was like, yeah, okay. So that's how it lasted 5 years. I'll leave it to the rest of you to figure out the other 20.
Thank you for the call or message. These weren't calls. Nobody called. They just sent me little MP3s. But thank you, David. David, who is still on the DK Vine staff today, is our longest tenured staffer after me.
Yeah, it's so I'm not sure I understood, because David said that this was the gap between 2002 and 2004, and then called that 5 years.
Okay, so
I might be confused about how that went down.
What David is. David was the torchbearer for keeping DK Vine going when Chad and I would lose interest in DK Vine. So 2002, we stepped away from DK Vine to do a short-lived webcomic. I don't need to go into that, but I was, basically like thinking, well, DK Vine, it was fun, but I really have to move on with my life. This notion I would get a couple times throughout that decade. And so, yeah, a bunch of people on the DK Vine forum basically wanted to step up and take over the reins of the site. And so we basically handed over editorialship of DK Vine to them. David was among them. And then in 2004, of course, I came back before then. I was basically a part-time DK Vine writer / editor from late 2002 onward. But in 2004, we sort of took back the reins full-time and relaunched the website in time for E3. But David still, was kept in the loop, and then basically owned the site for the brief window of time in the late aughts when Chad and I moved to Los Angeles and pursued, a career outside of Donkey Kong journalism. And yeah, David kept things running in that time until 2010 when we came back and basically regained ownership. So yeah, DK Vine would not exist if it wasn't for David. And I have all the admiration in the world for you, David. So
here's a question I actually have about that as someone who was not around at that time.
Yeah.
This is let's see, you're 10 years older than me, so you would have been like 18, like starting college around that. How much of it in percentage would you say, with the power of retrospection, to look back at your life at that time, was your momentary disinclination due to just going to college and moving on with your life and doing new adult things for the first time, which is a pretty big feeling change, versus how much of it was the Microsoft buyout and other things that were happening about the source material that we cover here on DK Vine. Just being in a tumultuous is the word that
That's
I want.
Right.
State.
So here's the thing about that. The timeline, what might surprise you a little bit, we stepped away in June of 2002. And what really brought me back into the fold and really wanting to come back to DK Vine and make sure DK Vine, kept going in some way was the buyout. Because I was like, oh my God, I need my people. Like, we need to galvanize as a community. We're under siege. So, yeah, it wasn't the buyout that drove me away. It was the buyout that really brought me back into the fold for the first time. Albeit not not as a full-time thing. Like you said, and like some people are saying in the chat, part of it was like going to college. Part of it was growing up, but also part of it was that social stigma where you have to leave childish things behind, right? Like, oh, okay, well, I'm entering the adult world now. I probably shouldn't be running a Donkey Kong website. And the thing about that is, I think a lot of people go through those phases, or they feel the pressure to go through those phases. And I don't know if it's the same as it was 24 years ago or 22 years ago, however long it was, but it definitely felt like I'm embarrassed by this in like normie society, right? And you step away, but then you kind of have this hole right in the middle of your soul, and you try to find other things to fill it, but nothing really adequately patches that over. And
drugs.
Well, a lot of people turn to drugs, sure. And I think for me, one of the gambling could definitely, whatever vice you want to throw in there.
Yeah.
Sports, sex, yeah. And so some of that stuff could
like
be
the investing in Squid Games.
Right.
Like
some of that stuff can be healthy in moderation, like the Squid Games. But when you overindulge, when you let it consume you, then that's no good. That's not a path you want to go down. And I think part of my journey at DK Vine was, I think it was 2010, where I was really like, and this, I think not so coincidentally coincided with me actually going into therapy for the first time and really working on my own mental health issues, which, I think I've been pretty open. I've got bipolar 2, which is the less severe version of bipolar disorder, but I have my mood swings. I have these low periods of depression, and sometimes that's really hard to be this outgoing, peppy, coke fiend personality on a Donkey Kong podcast week in and week out when you just don't feel like getting out of bed. But anyway, you learn how to cope, you learn how to manage with it, deal with it, have the proper perspective, and going to therapy and realizing ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't really care what normie society thinks of me, because I don't have much respect for, I sound like the Joker now, but I don't have much respect for some of the normal societal conventions, well, especially at the time. Maybe not so much as society has grown and progressed alongside me, but it's like, what do I care what other people think? If they're going to turn up their nose or look down at me, do I really want them in my life at all? And then that kind of really made me realize, fuck, I'm the Donkey Kong guy. That's part of who I am. It's not what solely defines me, but I don't need to hide from it. I don't need to run from it. And that is around the time I really came back to DK Vine full time, and have never left and never intend to leave. So, yeah. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I anticipated that answer a little bit. And I asked it because I think that it's easy to see, like, oh, you left in 2002 and that was the buyout year. And I actually think that we haven't really had much of an opportunity to test it. But I think when things are going like really well, like perfectly well, and they look like they're going to go perfectly well at speed into the future, that's actually probably when it's easiest to not feel like you have to do this kind of thing. Because if you have the idea of like, oh, well, they're going to make a new Donkey Kong Country and a new Banjo-Kazooie and a new Conquer and next year, and they're going to be AAA biggest games of the year, and everyone's going to pay attention to it, and it's just going to be this self-propelling device that keeps getting enough steam. You are going to feel like someone else can do the hard part. You're going to feel like the hard part is not something that won't go untended if you don't pick up your share of the slack or your take on how to do this thing called fandom. And I'm glad that well, first off, I'm glad you came back. It's nice to see you.
I wasn't gone that long. Like my hiatuses
before I came on board.
Yeah.
So
my hiatuses have always been brief, and like I said, 2002 I came back within a few months, and I just kept more of a low profile. But I was still doing articles. I was still writing stuff for the site. The only time I've ever really truly stepped away was 2008 into 2009. Those were my only actual felt absences away from DK Vine. So
yeah, and with the power of retrospection, that doesn't feel like that should have been the darkest time period, but I kind of feel I understand kind of why that would have been a fairly dark time period in the history of DK Vine. That said, there's some shout outs in the comments or in the Twitch chat right now.
Yeah.
Saying that you should get into sports.
Sports. Yeah. I've tried. And here's the thing about sports. I understand there's a lot of history and stats. I don't really care about stats, Mitchell. I'm not a stats guy. I don't like numbers in general. So for me, I said this before. I've argued with Jeff about this because Jeff is a sports guy. And I'm like, there's not enough lore for sports. And Jeff was like, what are you talking about? There's lots of lore. And I was like, okay, there's not enough pathos then. I don't know. I love a rich, really convoluted history. And for me, sports is it just doesn't do it. It just doesn't match the criteria I'm looking for in my entertainment.
You know when I really get into sports, because I feel somewhat in between Jeff and you on that.
Yeah.
Is during the Olympics, it feels like there's a lot of history that suddenly comes to light that had been buried for 4 years of we don't talk about if we're better than Czechoslovakia at volleyball very often, but maybe now we'll talk about it. And that kind of stuff just feels interesting to me. But you're right. That isn't how sports often feels. That is sort of an exception to the to the way that it normally goes down.
Yeah, and somebody can be traded to a different team, and then you're just now I have to root against this person, but this person I was all for the previous season, the previous year, and now they're the enemy. I can't disassociate myself from the things I love so much, and I mean,
you're telling me Grab by the Ghoulies is going to go play for the Mariners?
Well, I mean, but yeah, Rare went to Xbox, and I followed Rare to Xbox. I'm not going to just say, oh, they're no good. I don't like Rare anymore because they're not with Nintendo. That's not how I'm wired. I'm loyal. To a fault sometimes, but loyal.
Steve from Rare Gamer just posted, Hyle is interested in sports when Royston shows up in Connect Sports Season 2. And I'll tell you, I doubt it. I doubt that's when Hyle is interested in sports.
Oh, Mitchell, when the Xbox 360 store closed last month, I made sure I got all the Connect Sports Season 2 DLC bought before.
Cool.
Yeah. Got in under the wire.
Did you boot it up at all?
No, because it's my Xbox 360 is in a box somewhere, and it's I'll deal with it later. Anyway, Mitchell, I wanted to sprinkle in some memories from DK Vine. And there's one in particular I want to talk about right now, which just so happens, and I'm sure I knew this little factoid before. No, in fact, I know this, but I forgot it until I was compiling a few notes for this episode. Because this event actually happened on DK Vine's 8th anniversary in 2007. Just a weird happenstance that it fell on August 22nd. But it was the day that Diddy Kong got announced for Super Smash Bros. Brawl on the Super Smash Bros. Dojo website. And this was such a cathartic moment for DK Vine. And it feels like it was almost the high point of the buyout era, where there was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of confusion about not just the future of Rare, but the future of Donkey Kong under Nintendo sans Rare. And of course, I don't need to relitigate all of it here. All of the rumors and hearsay and mistranslated interviews that led to the uproar, the kind of slant of the gaming media at the time, which was very much opposed to everything Rare did and Donkey Kong Country and the characters therein. So we were very much on the back foot, on the defensive during this entire decade. So to get Diddy Kong into Super Smash Bros. Brawl, which Brawl was really the first hype cycle for Smash that felt like the now traditional Smash hype cycle, right? Where everybody starts arguing and going to bat for characters. And as a community, of course, we would have wanted K. Rool then. We would have wanted... Banjo and Kazooie, we felt like they were pretty much off the table during this point in time. But the one character we all agreed on was Diddy Kong. And it was Diddy getting into Smash that really felt like the moment. And Cameron and I just kind of talked about this on the Kongversation the other week. This was the moment where Diddy Kong became cemented, where it was no longer a fear that Diddy Kong would ever be retired or pushed aside or ignored. It was a validation of the character and by extension of everything Rare did. It was the kingmaker giving Diddy a crown. And I'll never forget because, Smash Dojo would update very early in the morning in the US. It would usually I'd be after midnight, I think. And everybody would stay up to see what the Smash Dojo update would be, if it was going to be a new character. And the night or morning, rather, that Diddy went live, there was a several hour delay in the post. And so we all were like, what's happening? What's going on? Is it going to be a new character? Why is it delayed? And I think it was something like 3 or 4 a.m. on the East Coast where it finally went live. And sure enough, it was Diddy Kong. And it was just like everything we could have hoped for. And just the memory of like that time in your life when you can stay up to an absurdly late or early hour to see the sunrise, just to wait for a video game website to possibly update with something cool. I'll never not be nostalgic for that. And it's one of the happiest memories of DK Vine. It really did feel like, in some ways, the end of an era, because the next couple years was kind of all downhill after that. But for that brief shiny moment, we had won. And it's one of my happiest memories.
Yeah, I had not. So I played Jungle Beat when it came out, and I was part of playing the Donkey Kong games, but maybe not the community as much in the first decade of the 2000s. So even though Jungle Beat did not have any of the older characters, I kind of just thought like, oh yeah, that's a weird thing. I don't know. And when Diddy Kong was announced, it felt like, nice. That's absolutely one of the correct picks. That's it. It's just it was so nice to see that kind of thing, time and time again for the release characters for Brawl. Like not even just Diddy Kong, but like Wario felt like, well, that certainly should have been there like 1 or 2 games ago. And the Pokemon starters, which I've always maintained are the main characters of Pokemon. And then Diddy Kong, like just a really good like crop of new characters. My favorite character addition to the game is Banjo-Kazooie, but I think overall Brawl is definitely the strongest lineup of new characters that the series has ever had.
I would say Brawl is a really, really great lineup of new characters, and Ultimate felt like the ones that didn't or couldn't get in that definitely deserved to get in for various reasons. But and then you had Smash 4 in the middle, which of course had some good obvious selections, but also felt a lot more esoteric and maybe to the whims of Sakurai and his team. And it's all up for debate. It's what you like, right? And of course, as a DKU guy, as a rare person, I really love Ultimate and everything Ultimate brought to the table, because I got the 2 characters I wanted the most after Diddy in Brawl, of course. And so, I feel like
that kind of external validation is huge.
It is. Yeah.
Just being able to say, like, okay, look, I like Donkey Kong Country, and I think that Diddy is one of the Nintendo All-Stars, certainly worthy of a place in Super Smash Brothers, certainly worthy not just for his role in the Donkey Kong games, but like he had his own game that was in the time period in which it came out was a pretty big deal.
Right.
And it's things that we tell ourselves very often of like, look, I don't need someone from Gen Alpha to come up to me, a big boy I am, to come up to me and explain like, you only sold as many copies as Croc. Your thing isn't interesting. Your thing's not actually important. Like, yeah, okay, but you weren't there. You weren't there. Yeah. And to see like these kinds of things that beyond a shadow of the doubt actually justify the way that you've been talking about something or the way that you've been feeling about something as actually important is it's a pretty unparalleled feeling of being online and into video games. There's nothing else quite like it.
It makes you realize, oh, I'm not crazy. I didn't imagine this. This is actually a real thing. My life experiences were not a simulation, as far as I'm aware, as far as they are to anybody else. And so you see that, and it's just like, okay, my childhood has a little check mark next to it. Great. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. Diddy's my favorite character of all time, video games, or maybe even otherwise. And so I don't think I'll ever feel the rush and that kind of surreal out-of-body experience as Diddy getting into Smash. I mean, K. Rool was close. K. Rool was pretty close.
Yeah, I wish I found Brawl fun to play at all. I don't. I think it's the worst one probably. But like that, Smash is so much more than the game that it is. It's it just gets everyone talking together about that kind of thing in a way that we don't have very often. When Ultimate was when it was first announced, there was a lot of sentiment in the community of like, oh, we have to do this again. Like, do you not love this? Is this not like the best, most exciting, like way to use your feelings in video games? Period. Like, is this not some of the best potential petri dish for growing your weird opinions and positions on things, and talking about some of the special interests that you have that don't often get new news, but could, not because of themselves, but because of what Smash is doing. Is that not just like awesome to have?
I mean, I feel kind of put on the spot.
For round 6.
Yeah, it was me who was complaining when Smash Ultimate was announced. Mitchell, we had an episode about it where I was just like, I don't want to go through this torment again. And of course, it all worked out fine in the end. And that torment of Smash 4 actually led to K. Rool getting into Smash Ultimate and Banjo and Kazooie, I guess to a lesser extent. So that pain eventually led to validation on that front, but I didn't know it at the time. I was ignorant. I was in the dark. I didn't know.
I had to comfort you, and I had to say, Hyle, I'm pretty sure Pyra's gonna make it. And we've been friends ever since.
Cyber Wolfe in the live stream says, I followed Brawl coverage just through the Nintendo official magazine in Brazil. I didn't have internet at home back then. Yeah, like, as weird as that feels to me, I can totally understand, because I've had this discussion with Josh before, where Josh had access to the internet before I did in the 90s, and so Josh learned about things like Diddy Kong Racing as soon as they were announced, where I had to wait until Nintendo Power reported on it. So my experience with those was very much print media is announcing it. Oh my God. While Josh had that instantaneous in the know as it was happening, bolt of lightning strike. So I don't think there's anything wrong with experience and how you experience it, because that's the way you process it. That's unique to you. And I think we should all celebrate our own experiences and share them and learn from each other. Damn it, that's what this is all about. All right, Mitchell, we've got more messages. Let's go ahead and play our next well-wisher. Wishing well.
Hey, this is Miles, otherwise known through my YouTube channel, Copbox. And happy 25 years to DK Vine. What an incredible achievement, and a very well-earned one. There are many reasons something like DK Vine can endure the way that it has, and for starts, I promise you that there is no better place in the universe to get all of this juicy info and discussion around the DKU. This is backed up by the Kongversation podcast, where every single topic feels important. From flagship moments and characters to the smallest and strangest corners of the DKU getting the full attention that they deserve. But what really has allowed DK Vine to hit this milestone is its community, the DK Vine staff, and especially our Commander-in-Chief Hyle. All of us come together to celebrate and discuss these worlds again and again because we feel the pure care and enthusiasm that is brought front and center. It truly feels like one big, strange, happy family here, and after all this time, I feel like DK Vine is only growing bigger and stronger. And with the scent of a new console on the horizon, the next chapter is just beginning for us. So here's to DK Vine and every single one of you listening. Thank you for what we've built and this amazing community that we get to be a part of. Hey, what are you doing here? Get out of my house!
Well, thank you very much for the message, Miles, aka Copbox. Check out the YouTube channel. Thank you for the production value at the end, too. I always appreciate. I was going to say the extra mile, but this would be the extra miles in this case.
Yeah, I love that channel. I guess I didn't realize there was a connection there to DK Vine, but that's awesome. And it's great to hear. I love that message.
Yeah. So Cyberwolf says, I'm actually dreading the next Smash speculation. LOL. I'm in no rush to hear why K. Rool is getting cut. Yeah, Mitchell and I have talked about this. I feel like you can't improve on Ultimate. Mitchell, I've talked about your pitch, basically, of just doing a Smash RPG. Like, taking it back to the original 8 characters, maybe 12 characters, and just making a role-playing game with the concept of Smash, but keeping Smash Brothers, the fighting game, to Ultimate.
Well, I mean, yeah, I can easily see a switch to potentially getting something like a enhanced re-release, like an enhanced port of Ultimate,
Sure.
where it's just starting from Ultimate and maybe you add like 10 characters.
Yeah, no, that's
And,
what I mean. We like
like on the one hand that, and then like you can also you can do other things with Smash.
Yeah.
Not all of it is brothers means fighting, obviously. So you can just take that word off and put any other word you want at the end of Super Smash.
No, I agree. Like, not to use a phrase in the culture right now, but we're not going back as far as Smash Brothers goes, right? Like, Ultimate is such a crowd pleaser, and of course, not everybody's going to agree. Some people are going to be like, "Well, I preferred Melee," or I had the most nostalgic time with Smash 4 Wii U, but I think Ultimate just ticks the most boxes for people, has all of the characters. Like, you can add to it, but I don't think you can subtract. I don't think you can take away. What's done is done.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Melee is my favorite Smash game to play, bar none. But like, when you make a new one, you're just gonna expand, not go back. And you can obviously take cues from older games whenever you want to. But if there's an issue with, like, we can't have a Subspace Emissary anymore, that was a one-time thing only. Well, maybe we should think about what a Subspace Emissary could be if it was its own game. It didn't have to worry about also being Smash Brothers, or some other interpretation of that opportunity that is very rare and not easy to achieve elsewhere. But yeah, I think it'd be cool. That's just my little opinion. That's just my tiny little guy of an opinion.
You've got a lot of them, these opinions.
Yeah, they're growing.
Well, talking about DK Vine memories, and I feel like I would be at fault if I did not bring up talking about, like, late night hangout sessions. The year was 2010, Mitchell, and the reason I am here right now, the reason we're both here, the reason everybody's listening to this right now, was E3 2010, of course, the announcement of Donkey Kong Country Returns. And this is, and I've said this before, this was a time where I think the only time really in history where DK Vine had a chance of actually shutting down for good. You talk about, like, the buyout era and how, like, 2008, 2009 was a weird time maybe to walk away. But you have to keep in mind that that also might have been the lowest ebb in the history of the DKU, of Rare fandom. Yeah, like, Diddy Kong was in Brawl, and that was pretty cool. But then after the high, the Russia Brawl came out, and then, like, Barrel Blast / Jet Race, that Donkey Kong game that everybody was excited for, came out and was kind of a slog to play. And Nuts and Bolts came out and was quite controversial. I don't need to relitigate that, but Nuts and Bolts also kind of failed as, like, financially, sales-wise, and that seemed to be something of a death chime for Rare. Or at least it felt like it was, I mean, Nuts and Bolts was it was full of gallows humor, right? Like, this game is gonna fail and then our studio is gonna be closed. So it wasn't just the fandom that was kind of sensing this vibe. It was also, like, coming from inside, like the call was coming from inside. And so there was just this broad assumption that Donkey Kong, Rare, the DKU, it was all just kind of done. It was played out. Like, our moment had come and gone, and there was no reviving it. And this was an incorrect assumption. But I think maybe the way that the critical consensus and the tone and tenor of the video game media of the 2000s, it kind of accrued this feeling of defeatism in the fandom at this point in time. And it marked another opportunity for us to kind of walk away from DK Vine. And it just hit this really, really low ebb where the web hosting, the site's renewal was going to come up in a few months, and we probably weren't going to renew it. We kind of moved on with our lives, and there was really no indication that things were going to get any better. And then the rumors broke the weekend before the Nintendo presentation, the Nintendo press event at E3 2010, that Retro Studios was working on a Donkey Kong game. And it was just like a bolt of lightning that went through the community. As soon as anybody heard this news, they ran to the DK Vine forum, me included. And it was like the Saturday night and the Sunday night before the Tuesday Nintendo event. That was where we were all just kind of hanging out again and speculating and getting giddy and reminding ourselves why we fell in love with this nonsense in the first place. And it was kind of this very crystallizing moment for me. I've already talked about like everything that was going on in my life during that time, but it really made me feel like, you know, I would be stupid to walk away from this. I would be stupid to let DK Vine die, because clearly there's a passion. There's a lingering zeal for celebrating all this stuff. And there's too few voices out there doing it right now, you know? So yeah, like we would not be here if it wasn't for Donkey Kong Country Returns. And I look at what that led to, like all the people who joined the staff after that, who are still on the staff today, all like my closest friends. Mitchell, I would have never met you.
Yeah, probably.
It's why I don't really mind Donkey Kong Country Returns being the sort of visual backbone of the modern Donkey Kong series, because it's the backbone of modern DK Vine. We wouldn't have even made it to our 12th anniversary, let alone our 25th, if it wasn't for Donkey Kong Country Returns. And yes, that means that more than half of our existence is post Donkey Kong Country Returns, which I hate that. I don't like that fact. That's an ugly
isn't that
one.
Wild? That's so wild, especially because like I nowadays think of Donkey Kong Country Returns as firmly like middle era, I guess. It has now become middle era, probably just because of the extremely large gap of Donkey Kong games we got after Tropical Freeze. That made it feel longer to me. Even though it is also just a long time ago, it made it feel even longer ago because of that gap. But like Platonic to me feels like a modern era thing, like a very modern era thing. And then to realize that, Returns was only like 5 years before the Platonic Kickstarter. And then it was only 6 or so years after Jungle Beat. Like the timelines don't make sense. And now it's been like over a full decade since Tropical Freeze. Someone's playing with clocks, Hyle. Someone's playing with clocks, and I don't like it.
DK Buzzard in the live stream says the night before Donkey Kong Country Returns reveal was truly magical, easily my favorite DK Vine forum experience. Yeah, I'm going to say mine too. Obviously, I don't have time to really hang out on the forum much these days. I'm juggling way too much running DK Vine on the front end, but I think that really was just a special moment in time. And I always think back to it every time we talk about game hype cycles, or in the past tense now, E3s, or, you know, anytime we are anticipating something, to have that anticipation, but then to have the anticipation pay off with exactly what we wanted. It is very, very special. It is one time our optimism wasn't misplaced and it was rewarded. So yeah, it's definitely
It's the one time our optimism wasn't misplaced.
No, not the one time, but one of, like, there's so many E3s we would go into it. All right, this is going to be a good one. This is going to be it. We're going to get everything we want. We're going to get 12 games. And then, of course, we get absolutely nothing. And it just, it's a moral disaster on our end because we were just hyping everyone up. Ooh, E3. And then we help lead to the crestfallen disappointment. But
yeah, I remember a similar time. It was like the night before the Xbox presentation in E3 2015, and word had leaked out via some, I think it was like retail websites loading things prematurely.
Sure.
That like, oh, there's going to something of a Banjo remaster. And then like an hour later, people were on the forums thinking like, oh, wait, there was maybe like a Perfect Dark remaster too. Wait, is this two things that exist, or is this like one of them is wrong? And it was the time of like solving leak mysteries seems to be a little gone now because, well, for one, we don't have E3 existent in the same regard that it used to exist. So we just always kind of don't have anything going on except for one day where we do have something going on. They can surprise us a little bit easier with it. But there's such a communal aspect to those like fervored nights of trying to figure out like what the fuck is happening right now. Is there's a thing? There's a new thing? There's not supposed to be things.
Yeah.
There's never things. And then now like every time we get a new Nintendo Direct, I'll see the very energized, like youthful versions of us online saying something like, "I think this is the time for the Donkey Kong game," and or like before an Xbox presentation, like, "I think they're bringing Banjo back." And every time I see that speculation, I really wish I could just like buy in and be excited, even if I know I'm going to be a little crushed. But I think I can't be anymore. Even like when they get me, I won't feel like I was wrong to not believe it because it's just been so many times. But yeah, that's it. If you want to talk about one negative aspect of growing older, I think it's that like you don't get to just hope for unlikely things like that. You're playing with the likelihoods a lot more. You're thinking through the likelihoods. There is hope, but there's hope when like, oh, I could really see this happening. And if you can't really see it happening, you just don't do that hope thing anymore. Yeah, that those dealing with leaks is a very controversial thing. You know, I'm a video game developer. I hate when leaks come out about my stuff. And I have friends whose careers have been like actually negatively impacted by leaks. It's a real thing. And that's why like in this community,
my ethos as from my very like limited voice as the world's foremost Donkey Kong journalist, I don't chase leaks, right? Like I don't like try to play in that arena. If I can help it, you know, and part of that is also wanting to help preserve, I guess, the surprise of having a game revealed exactly how the developers and the team intended it to be revealed. Yeah. And I feel like that's an important aspect. And part of that was growing up with bated breath, waiting for games I wanted to be announced, having them announced and having it be perfect, this euphoric moment. And I would hate to help deprive as you said, the youthful generation of the same feelings.
Well, because just eventually in the long expanse of time, they're eventually going to be right if you just guess it every time. Like I don't think Donkey Kong, I don't think Banjo, I don't think new IPs from Rare that could fall into this family. I don't think any of that's dead. I don't think it could be permanently dead just because, I mean, time goes infinitely. Our lives only go a specific segment of that line, right? So, like, yeah, it's not a 0% chance if you just continue to guess it every time, but you start to wise up for when, like, oh, I think this year it really can't be.
Yeah.
And maybe this is not the time. So
I also have to be kind of the emotional guardian of the community now. Like, it's a responsibility I take a little bit more seriously than I used to, when it just felt like we were all just hanging out in the clubhouse, you know, the tree house, if you will. And now I'm like, I don't want to unnecessarily raise anybody's expectations. So you have to kind of deal with a element of truth in your reporting. And you can be like, oh, I hope we get this and I hope we get this. But you also have to be clear with people that you might not think we're actually getting this, you know? So it definitely is a more nuanced tone I'm taking nowadays. But I do kind of grow fond looking back at, say, 2010 and just remember just sitting on the DK Vine forum, endlessly speculating and hoping with everyone else. And talking about the youths, Porygon Q says, your website is older than I am, which, I mean, I know that's a thing now. I know we have a large part of our audience now is younger than the website, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's something to be proud of, that we have had the durability to evolve with the times just enough to, I guess, be a little bit relevant to
yeah, I mean, there's some
generations.
people today for whom Rare was really never a Nintendo thing.
Yeah,
there's some people today that haven't brushed their teeth yet because they were just born. There's people who have not done a lot of things. Some people were too young to see Black Panther and even Black Panther 2.
It's true. You know, there's somebody who's going to be born tomorrow, Mitchell.
Yeah. And right now, they are gross.
They're all gooey?
Wet and sticky and gross. Yeah. They're sticky, not on their A game.
Sticky like caramel.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an amniotic jubilee for them right now. And I hope they get past the trials and tribulations they're currently dealing with. But for now, yeah, that's gross.
All right. Should we play the next message from the DK Vine staff?
I think we got it.
And we have to.
Hello, I am Gibbon, and I am one of your DK Vine community managers. And on the topic of why DK Vine has lasted for 25 years, well, first of all, I didn't want to think about how old I was. But second of all, I think it's due to the pure and everlasting passion the human race embodies for big apes and their friends. A new game or film or show or whatever about a spunky gorilla sometimes wearing a snazzy tie or a big bear or what have you will always be in vogue, never not going to be popular. So, yeah, really? I think that's it. I think that's the secret. It just boils down to just that we always have something poking its head around the corner because the characters just have that primal appeal, and that's why our little corner of the internet has such longevity and passion behind it. Yeah. Yep, that's it. Bye.
Well, thanks, Gibbon. You know, this is funny, though, because I remember during the buyout era arguing on the DK Vine forum that one of the reasons people didn't care about Donkey Kong anymore, and I was arguing against this, but I would hear this a few times during this era, was that apes and monkeys were not popular animal characters. that the youth of the 2000s just did not like primates.
You know, I think there's like, I think it is mostly not true. Obviously, it's an aspect of the natural world that will outlive all of us living today, that there are gorillas. So, like, I think that it just has to be possible to be exciting still for everyone. But also, on the other hand, like, there was very clearly a wave of popularity that was different than what came before and what came after in the late 80s and early 90s for dinosaurs, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that that came and went in the fervor that it had. People still like dinosaurs. People still enjoy thinking about it, but like the wonder that brought about stuff like Jurassic Park, probably not around anymore. And I do kind of see maybe the argument with gorillas and like, not just liking gorillas. I think you're still going to like gorillas the same way you're still going to like dinosaurs. But there was a maybe a fad of thinking about gorillas harder than we had to in that time period that boosted those sales. Which is why I think that Diddy Kong as a character design is probably stronger than Donkey Kong as a character design, and I think Banjo and Kazooie are stronger as character designs as well. Because Banjo and Kazooie and Diddy Kong and some of the other characters, K. Rool, are much more based around character design philosophy, in what they look like and how they're built. And Donkey Kong, it kind of needs to be the way that he is in order to just be the same character from that 1981 game in a different place.
Sure.
And if we ever get a place for Donkey Kong in our society that is paramount to what happened in the 90s with the Country Trilogy and 64 being such big deals, it's going to be because those games are good. And it's going to be because those games that we get are exciting to people who've never even cared about Donkey Kong. That's the thing we've got to remember. If we get our wildest dreams, if the impossible becomes possible, and we just get 1,000 of these DKU games, and not just like spin-offs, but like core DKU games, it won't matter unless they are truly able to bring in new people and have that as a priority, just as much as appeasing some of us old heads who have always cared.
And I'm all for that. Like,
when that happens, we're gonna like the gorillas too.
Yeah, sure. Like, I liked like gorillas and monkeys before I got into Donkey Kong. That kind of led me to Donkey Kong, or at least the original iteration of Donkey Kong, before Donkey Kong Country even came out. But you know, like you said, these things ebb and flow like dinosaurs. Cyber Wolfe in the live stream talks about cavemen. It seems like late 80s to early 90s cavemen. And I think that was part of dinosaurs as well. I think there's just this whole prehistoric vibe that kids really liked during that time. And yes, the eras don't actually sync up. Cavemen never lived at the same time as dinosaurs, but in popular culture,
but we want them to have. We would appreciate it if they did.
Yeah. I look back at the early 90s though, and like that was the golden age for cavemen fiction. We had Encino Man, classic film. Mm-hmm. 2 Oscar winners are in it. Don't know me. Where's
Paul
Jeff?
Shore, Brendan Fraser. Don't act like I don't know.
Well, I know.
Keon Hui.
Yeah. Jeff will sing the praises of Encino Man. Anyway, Freezer also points out NFT showed apes can be popular. Yeah, I don't like that though. Can we find another way for them to endure? Thank you. Okay. All right. Here we go, Mitchell.
One example of cavemen. You're like, there's so many cavemen examples, like Encino Man.
Even Super Mario. Super Mario's persona via Super Mario World and the cartoon.
Oh yeah, some of the Saturday morning cartoons had a caveman element to it.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah,
yeah. There was a lot of cavemen games.
Cavemen existed.
A lot of cavemen games on the Super Nintendo, and all you have to do to verify that is to go to Nintendo Switch Online and pull them up and play them.
You ever played Bonk?
I have not played Bonk, no.
Me neither.
Good chat. All right. So
okay, moving on.
Let's take
Keep
the
it
next
fresh.
Yeah, let's take the next message. This is from someone in the community, someone who I imagine is going to send a fanciful message. So, let's play it.
Algor, are you sure I'm close enough to the microphone? I think so. All right. I'll kill you if you screw this up. Yes, master. Shut up! Hello! Grunt here. What does the DK Vine mean to me? Well, when I first joined in 2006... Was it earlier? Look, I'm 10,000 years old. I can't remember everything. Anyway, I didn't post much, but I did read a lot of the forum. As a Donkey Kong Country fan, that's pretty much where I got my news. It also got me through a lot of very bad memories, such as my high school experience. You know, not so much the part where I killed and ate everyone, including the building they were sitting in, and more my experience leading up to it. You know, that old chestnut. And it brought a smile that was so lacking in my face. As the years went on, I would post more, get to know the fellow DK Viners, share my YouTube content, and murdered 1,506 Christmas orcs with my pinky toe, thus bringing into creation Puppets K. Rool. Please don't try to envision that, because your pants may never smell fresh again if you do. But that may not be relevant. But good old Hyle, he did give me a lot of press, positive press, including having me and the guy whose hand is currently up my ass co-host an episode of the Kongversation. The attention even gained the attention of Rareware and Platonic employees who made my favorite games a reality, and eventually landed me the current pinnacle of my career, being a background artist in bootleg dub productions animation of Return to Crocodile Isle. Yes, if not for the DK Vine, I probably wouldn't even be close to the puppet tyrant I am today. Although I haven't met a whole ton of you in real life, I consider you all as a little family that I have no intention of devouring. You are some of my dearest friends. I mean that sincerely, and for that, I thank you. You sentimental bastards! That was beautiful, Master. That's it, Algor. Time out! Aww. March!
Thank you, Grunt. You know, I sent out the message, and I asked Grunt. I hadn't considered. Well, I should have considered the possibility that it would be a message from his puppet. So that's on me, not thinking that through. But I appreciate it nonetheless, Grunt. Thank you so much. I still need to commission a puppet from you at some point. I've been saying for years now I need to hire you to make me a puppet, but the problem is I just can't decide which puppet character to create. Because, like, I feel like I've got one shot at getting this right. I'm not made of money.
You could make one of me.
A Mitchell Wolfe puppet?
If you want.
I mean, that would come in handy whenever you can't do the show. And then I could just break
it. If you want.
I could break out the felt version of Mitchell, and it would be it'd be just like you're there.
It is good to know what Al Gore's been up to.
Yeah, I know. I worry about the guy so much.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Why don't we go ahead and just knock out the next message while we're at it. This is also from somebody in the community, somebody who's actually in the live stream with us right now. I wonder who it is.
Hey, I'm Freezer. You might remember me from such episodes as Spotlight Saber Wolfe and Tribunal, Mickey's Racing Adventure. Oh, wait, that one hasn't happened yet. Well, Hyle, now you have to do it. You can't make me look like a liar. But I am a video game collector and reviewer who almost exclusively covers handheld video games. I have a YouTube channel named Freezer. Good luck finding it. The name is terrible because I don't believe in search engine optimization. On my channel, I currently cover games for the Game Boy, for Game Gear, for WonderSwan, the Game Boy Advance, the N-Gage kinda, but not really, the DS, the PSP, the 3DS, the Vita, and the Switch. And I also do PC games on occasion. That's not really enough. I need to start to get more things to collect. I need to get a Link soon. Maybe even a Virtual Boy. That'd probably make you happy, Hyle. My videos are meant to be funny and insightful, but I'm not sure if they actually are. So please, watch them all yourself and let me know in the comments. Also subscribe and give me money on Patreon. Anyway, Hyle, congratulations on the 25th anniversary of the second best website dedicated to Rare. You've managed to grow up from a little boy threatening Nintendo of America employees to be the little man you are now who is a paid shill for Nintendo of America. And honestly, you deserve it. You are really sincere, and you're very knowledgeable about this single thing. And you give off this nervous energy that keeps me coming back all the time, because I just need to know if you're still alive this week. I know more of the vocal supporters of you have lived and breathed Donkey Kong their whole lives, but I'm an exception to that. Between the release of Donkey Kong Country 3 and Tropical Freeze, I never played any Donkey Kong games. I didn't peg, I didn't play old games on the go, I didn't have a bongo or waggle my Wiimote or anything like that until about 2017 or so, which is when I discovered you. You are really good when it comes to summoning a cult-like audience, and you've managed to turn a lot of us, we're normal people sometimes, but you've turned these casual Rare and Donkey Kong fans into weird and bizarre fanatics. You ruin us. You got me to play It's Mr. Pants, and it's all I ever talk about now. I even know about the Rare Cow. You fundamentally changed my whole life, and I owe you for it. I really do. And that's part of the reason you've managed to keep this website going for so long. You get these normal people, and you turn them into weirdos. You turn them into bizarre fanatics that have to keep coming back to your website for more. It's addictive, and the Kongversation is one of my favorite things to listen to, especially when I'm on it, so hopefully that happens more often. But, that's all one part of the reason why you're still going strong. I really think the larger reason is you're very stubborn, and this is a sunk cost fallacy. You won't let this site die because it's all you have. And maybe it'll become profitable in the future, so you have to keep going until then. Gamblers that fail are just gamblers that still aren't gambling. So keep this website going until you die, and maybe your next of kin, whoever that is, I don't really know. I'm pretty sure your dog won't outlive you. But whoever you eventually get to become the next of kin, they might make the website profitable. So you need to do this for their legacy.
Wow.
How do you feel about that?
I don't know. I am feeling so many things right now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a feel one. It's a feels one for sure. Yeah, it's thanks for the message, Freezer.
Steve says the roast of DK Vine. That's kind of what it feels like. I feel like I need to, get up and really just lay into everybody who's been giving these messages, because they're starting to get mean.
I think it's bold to plug your Patreon and also say that it's going to be tough to have a next of kin because your dog is going to die in the same phone call.
Yeah, that was my favorite part too. Thank you, Freezer.
Yeah.
No. There's some sincerity in there. There's some warm messages kind of hidden in the acidic, I guess, portents of doom. I don't.
Yeah, it's like one of those magic eye posters. You really got to look at it, but if you stare at it just the right way, it's a sailboat.
Right. This is why I prefer the attic full of cockroaches over people.
Because they form a magic eye picture that you can look at and see a sailboat.
No, because they're going to maybe confront my mortality, is what I'm saying. A cockroach, they won't do that. They just persevere.
I don't know. I would burn part of the house. I can't. There's so many cockroaches in 1,000 cockroaches. That's so many. That's almost like it's over 200. And yeah. I mean, it's a health concern. They're not okay. They're not. They have good to have around.
They have every right to be here. I mean,
nope. I disagree.
No, it's just like I always say. They're always just trying to get by, right? Like their concerns, their wants, their hopes, their dreams are no different than ours. We're back on the cockroach.
I feel that way
discourse.
about the guy in the attic.
Okay. Well, I don't think we're going to reach a consensus on this, Mitchell, but I will say this, Freezer, but before we move on, despite the banter, I do appreciate your voice and your presence in this community and your advocacy for the games that too many people ignore or overlook. It's always nice to have another voice propping them up. So even if you don't like us as much as you do Rare Gamer because they celebrate the Rare Calso.
It's always good to have another voice.
Yeah, it is. It is.
You could be a little,
Oi, governor, my name's DK Vine, ain't it?
It's like that's another voice you could have.
I don't really like to do the silly voices, though, Mitchell.
Oh, I'm just a little DK Vine, just a website. I like to eat data.
Wow. It's like my website has come to life and it's talking to me right here.
Give me a data sandwich. Nom, 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 nom.
Freezer says I have nervous energy. And if I have nervous energy for one reason, it's having to deal with stuff like this.
Yeah, when your website talks to you and tells you it's hungry for data, it definitely puts you on edge. It would put me on edge.
It does. Yeah. It does. Well, getting back to the route of positivity, another beloved, cherished DK Vine memory. And I'm going to keep this one brief because I've retold this and we've actually experienced this on the Kongversation as it happened. You can always go back and listen to those episodes. But E3 2015 was a very, very special time for me, for DK Vine, because it was the very first E3 I got to attend in person. And, you talk about the rumors of Rare Replay that were going around like the night before. Well, I was on a plane going to Los Angeles that very night, and I landed and I pulled out my phone and I saw the new Rare logo leaked on a pin for the very first time, a pin which I later obtained at the very last day of E3. But that was a very special E3. You talk about like the low of 2008 to 2009 as far as like Rare and Rare's legacy was concerned. And then E3 2015, the real launch of what we call the Rare Renaissance, where you had Rare Replay and Sea of Thieves announced. We got to meet several Rare staffers, past and present, in person for the very first time. You had the ukulele hype. Playtonic was also there showing ukulele behind closed doors. And I got to meet you, Mitchell.
Yeah, it was an exciting time. I think probably since the buyout, honestly, E3 2015 was the most positive feeling, the most it could have been believed that like the old 90s feeling that this stuff is in the mainstream could come back, could be a real participant. And like, we're not there anymore, but there was a time in 2015, cosmically not so long ago, when that felt like it could have happened, and to enjoy that, not just with not just like with whoever we would have celebrated with anyway, but the whole community, and to get everyone's opinion on everything that was happening at that time all at once was a pretty big deal. And we played Chibi Robo Ziplash.
Yeah, I got the convention flu. That was fun.
Yeah. Metroid Prime Federation Force Blast Ball was there.
Yeah, that was
Not
there.
Federation Force, only Blast Ball was there.
Yeah.
Only the Blast Ball part.
Right. No, yeah, it was fine. I think that Steve, you were also there. Yes, I met Steve for the first time there too. So I wasn't trying to exclude you, Steve. I was just, Mitchell is doing the episode with me. I didn't know if you're still in the chat. You're going to come up later anyway, Steve. Stop trying to make me feel bad. Stop trying to make me feel bad. Everybody's trying to make me feel bad, and it's my anniversary.
Wow.
Trainer Derek says, I'm going to miss DK Vine E3 on-scene coverage. So am I.
I really hope that there's something in the future, whether or not it's exactly the same, that feels like that could feel again. But I don't know if there will be. It's just a different world we live in now, and making a convention like that, it takes so much money from the interested parties, and it no longer solves a problem that is worth spending that money. So like, it's probably just not happening in that way. But it would be great to have an E3 again.
I mean,
nice.
I look, like, all these other conventions are still going. E3 is the only one that had the bottom really fall out underneath it.
Well, I mean, they're going for now. Like, you have Gamescom, you have Tokyo Game Show, which are like the German and Japanese version of that.
Right.
But they were never quite as big as E3, and they just keep getting smaller each year anyway, because of that. Because their talents aren't as required as they used to be, and it's a bummer. But you know, maybe this time, maybe next year, maybe in 2025, there's going to be like in like Tallahassee, there's going to be a Donkey Kong and Conquer only like big convention.
Mm-hmm. Right, the big Donkey Kong and Conquer convention in Tallahassee. I know we've talked about this before. Yeah,
Tallahassee, Illinois. There's a lot of potential in that charming little town.
We've often not joked, but like sincerely wanted to do a Kongvention at some point in time, and it's still on my list, of course. But as you said, the amount of capital that's required, logistics, it's not.
That is different. Like, if it doesn't have to be big companies announcing big games, and it's just like us hanging out, maybe something. But like, it would be. It certainly would be a different kind of thing than E3.
Steve says, congratulations on 25 years of DK Vine. Are you sorry yet? Is the motto for this episode. Well, let's try to change the tone. Let's try to get back in the upbeat tempo, shall we? Let's go and play our next message.
Hello, Hyle and Mitchell. It is Chris Alcock here calling to congratulate you, yes you, on reaching 25 years and still not having gotten caught in any of the many, many pitfall traps I keep setting for you. I'm genuinely not sure what's going on there. Anyway, DK Vine, yes. I don't think we'll ever know for sure what the secret sauce is that's kept the site alive for a quarter of a century and counting, nor how much of it continues to stain the tip-top suite, but I have a sneaking suspicion the truth lives in the negative space between the games. Because for as easy as it is to be a fan of, say, the Mario games, getting to eat well on a regular basis, there's not really that much to talk about when you're done playing them. There are hardly ever any weird mysteries underpinning, Princess Peach's parents or bits of obscure lore. There's rarely any unreachable areas to kind of fuel speculation and have you butting your head against invisible walls. And there aren't really characters from other series turning up in a way that just starts, sparking connections in your weird, weird brains. Zelda does a little better in this regard, but the problem with Zelda is that the team are always outright poo-pooing the nature of a coherent timeline at every opportunity and basically kink-shaming the players for thinking about the games more than they quote-unquote should. But the acknowledgement and frequently nowadays outright celebration of a connected Donkey Kong universe, that turns those games' mysteries, connections, knowing winks, all of it, into a playground for the imagination that exists in the void where new entries and expanded universe offerings should, but frequently don't exist. So even if the toy box is empty, you've proven that you can still make your own fun. And I, for one, think that DK Vine's commitment to doing just that is what's going to power you through to the next Donkey Kong game, beyond it, and who knows, maybe even another 25 years.
Well, thank you for the call, Chris. I've never had it put to me in those terms, Mitchell.
It is so like Chris to say that the reason that this fandom has stayed alive is because of the careful writing of rare games. Thanks, Chris.
Well, I was more focused. Yes, I picked up on that too. I was going to just ignore it, but the part that jumped out to me, and it's actually quite true, quite accurate, is that Rare has never kink-shamed us. Unlike, say, the Zelda team or the more traditional way of looking at a video game, Rare has, if not outright advocated for what we do, never gone out of their way to shut us down, and they've always thrown us little morsels here and there to keep us going. And I mean, it's appreciated. It definitely, I don't know if they just, since we were there kind of out, the onset of their online presence. I mean, a year before DK Vine started, we were writing into Scribes, and interacting with Lee Loveday. And I don't know if it was just getting a read on what made the Rare fandom and by extension, the Donkey Kong fandom of the time really tick. And just kind of leaning into it rather than fighting it.
Well, the one time where it kind of felt like Rare had done a kink shame of sorts of the community's interests was Nuts and Bolts, and it turned out about as well as you could imagine that would. So every bit since then, where we've had opportunities to speak directly to people at Rare or people who have previously been at Rare or people on the Nintendo side or the Playtonic side, wherever. And they consistently and passionately always seem to be on the side of like, yeah, the thing you're talking about is pretty cool and is there and is something that can be discussed in a fandom like way, in a fandom like setting. So I think that is, if not self-aggrandizing, Chris, still a pretty good point.
No, it's definitely, look, obviously we have a friendship with Chris and others at Rare, past and present. And yeah, part of that is, they're fans too. they might have a different view of things, having intimately worked on several of these projects, but it is kind of like getting on the same wavelength as the creators, and that is a really special thing. It's not unique to Rare fandom or DKU fandom, however you want to define it, but it definitely feels unique in the realm we operate in, which intersects so much with Nintendo fandom. And it definitely gives our community a unique voice and a unique perspective on all of this. And that has definitely helped fuel DK Vine the last 25 years. Cyberwolf says, you don't have any idea how hard it is to convince people that Star Fox connects to Diddy Kong Racing through Tricky, though. But I guess it's part of the fun. It is fun. It is so much fun. And
it's part. I think making an argument is sometimes more fun than having a conversation, and part of that lies in the ability to learn things and the ability to share information as a love language of sorts online. And DK Vine has been nothing if not very loving in the way that it will argue.
Because here's the thing, like most of our arguments don't take away. It doesn't detract. It doesn't remove things. It only argues for additions, right? So when we say, yes, the Tricky in Star Fox Adventures is plausibly the same Tricky in Diddy Kong Racing, that just enriches Star Fox Adventures for us and Diddy Kong Racing. It only adds to our appreciation and our enjoyment of those games. And Freezer's going on about the Rare Cow right now. I knew that was coming. I opened my mouth and I was going to invite that argument, that why haven't you acknowledged Mickey's Racing Adventure and Perfect Dark for the Game Boy Color and this and that and the other? Well, there's a time and there's a place, all right? Freezer, all right?
2026.
I have too much to do right now. I don't have a lot of time left with my dog.
Yeah, in 2026, DK Vine is going to cover Mickey's Racing Adventure. Write it down on your calendars. It'll happen on January 1st, as soon as it becomes the year, and you'll know when things are going down.
I'm shaking my head sideways right now. Don't listen to Mitchell. Don't take anything Mitchell's saying right now as a guarantee or a promise.
Just wait for New Year's. Get that sweet New Year's sloppy smooch that you get when you count down, and then just sort of meditate. You'll feel it. You'll understand that is that a Game Boy Color game flowing into my. Okay, all right, and it'll be grand. It'll be grand.
Here's a little something you might not know about me, Mitchell. I hate the word smooch. There's just something about it that. It's like,
is it the intimacy?
Needles. What's that?
Is it the human intimacy?
No, I love human intimacy. In fact, I love the word sloppy. In fact,
okay,
but before smooch, that's a non-starter for me. I love passionate kisses, but something about the word smooch really just puts me off. The whole thing.
Is it the suction?
I love suction
implied with it. Okay, that's a curious one. All right,
I'll leave that to the armchair therapist listening to this right now.
Dr. Smooch.
I'm not subscribing to that YouTube channel. That's it. Like, there's gonna be a Dr. Smooch, right? Like, if there isn't already, in like 10 years. Like, once Mr. Beast is played out,
the Marvel
here comes
Cinematic Universe is spreading pretty fast. So I think that's just an inevitability. It's another one of those inevitabilities we've been talking about.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and play our next message.
Hello, I'm Dead Eyes Dre, and I'm a creator focusing on the written word, where my subject within this DKU is Sea of Thieves. I've been working with Jeff Onan over at Golden Sands blog post for some years now, as well as in other community groups like Merfolk's Lullaby, Ancient Isles University, and The Privateer. Today, though, I'm here to give my thoughts about why DK Vine has lasted these past 25 years. I could say something pithy like dedication and hard work, but aside from all that Hyle has done to shepherd us in the way of the DKU, I think what really draws people this way is that taking these worlds and putting them under analysis. The worlds and the characters who inhabit these games have spoken to us, and we want to speak about them. And DK Vine has allowed us that place to do so for countless years, and to connect with others who feel the same way.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Dre.
Hard to joke about.
I know. I don't have
a very sincere, lovely thing to say.
Yeah, I don't have any snark to bring to that. So thank you though. Thank you so much. It means the world. Freezer says people need to be meaner.
I will say about Dre is that
Yes.
I've seen I'm in a Discord server with Dre, and I'll see them post just lots of thoughtful things day in, day out, and it's people like Dre, in my opinion, that are the backbone of making fandoms like this work, because like as I think the key like labor producer, Hyle, you're putting the website together. I think that you've firmly won the award for done the most for DK Vine. That's more than fair.
It's not a competition. It's not a competition. I'm not trying to compete with anybody and saying I win.
It's a little bit, but Dre is a perfect fan of these things, and I wish them the best, and I hope they continue to be beloved members, or a beloved member of this community.
I agree. I agree completely. I think of Dre as the platonic ideal of a perfect fan. They also have a lot of other talents as well. Talented writer, talented actor. In the live stream, Mineheart is joining us, saying, signing on for my after-work jog, running through this cool summer night amongst cicadas, crickets, and whatever that was that dropped on my head just now. It's probably a cockroach.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm very happy to listen in this 25th anniversary stream. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sorry about your bug thing.
I mean, it's the perils of jogging at night during the summer.
So Hyle, I gotta be honest. I'm looking at the next message that we have on the list.
Yeah.
I pulled it up. This is 10 minutes long.
Are
you ready?
I don't think this is actually 10 minutes long, Mitchell. I think it's doing the thing again where it's giving you a false reading.
Well, I saw who it was from, and I thought could be the longest one, and yeah. So I don't know. Could be false. Could be false. I believe that, but I also I think they have it in them.
I think they do too, but I think this is actually going to be slightly shorter than Freezer's message, looking at my more accurate time codes here.
Fair enough. I wonder why I have wrong times.
I don't know. You're out of sync, Mitchell. You're adrift. You're quantum leaping into unknown territories here. Let's play it though. I'm nervous about this one. I feel like this is going to be a disaster piece theater here. Let's find out.
All right. Hello, everybody. This is the Idaho crew.
Hello.
Yeah, it's Curly, Joe, Mo, and Cameron.
I think that's right. Which one of us is Joe?
We don't have a
I'm
chef.
Joe.
No, we don't need chef. We have a Joe.
Well, so the question is, why do we think DK Vine lasted 25 years?
Beats me. Yeah, fucking who knows? A lot of reasons. One being last fan site standing, pretty much. Honestly,
like, we joke, but I think even though DK Vine has always been a somewhat small community, it's been always very tight-knit, in my opinion.
Yeah.
A lot of people always know each other. Like, people posting on the forums nowadays are still the same people who have almost been posting for almost 25 years now. It's kind of nice not to have, like, a super huge, like, community, but just, like, kind of a small, intimate one where...
Yeah, it's about how you use it.
Yeah. In a sexual and non-sexual way, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, the smallness of the community, like, kind of just fosters that closeness because you get to actually, like, know everybody either... Where am I going with this? I forgot where I was going mid-thought.
That's all right.
Cool.
So,
Yeah. Fuck you, Hyle.
The reason I think DK Vine has lasted 25 years is because Hyle didn't see any merchandising potential in Greenporn City, so decided, well, this is the best I could do.
Hyle, I need to apologize. That was very rude of me.
Yeah.
I won't ever speak fondly of DK Vine again. I promise you that.
No, I mean, I agree. All the cool people and whatnot, and all the shit that's on there.
I like the shit. I like
all the shit.
All the good people stuck around since 2001.
That's true.
I guess just being sincere, I guess part of why it stuck around is, like, you know, we're in a very, like, interesting overlap of fandoms where, like, a lot of the stuff we cover will just be on the back burner, but we also get semi-tangential stuff in a sort of, like, if you like this, you may also like a Netflix recommendation list for people. So when you get the people that have, like, attachments to these characters and franchises and the people who work on them, and that tight-knit group sticks together through good times and bad, you really you're left with a strong community.
So it's like when recommending Conker's Pocket Tales, is that like recommending Young Sheldon on Netflix? Is that the analogy? I think I get it.
That's what we're going out on, a Young Sheldon joke. It's a happy 25th anniversary, DK Vine.
Thank you. Sorry.
And you smell like one, too.
How was that as chaotic as one of their streams? I asked for a simple message, and I got...
It felt like 10 minutes and 5 seconds.
Here's the thing, though, that worries me about this commune of people living together in Idaho like a militia. I already have so many staff members I've lost to this blob, this ever-expanding identity of the Idaho crew. Cameron now lives there. And I'm like, what happens when Jeff moves in? What happens when David starts crashing there? It's going to get to the point where it's nothing but Idaho crew.
Yeah. I saw a YouTube video yesterday about how Idaho wants to have half of Oregon. And this is apparently a thing that the people in Oregon also want. So it actually might. I don't know. It could kind of happen a little bit, maybe. So I hear that political news, and I think, like, that is Tate. You know, that is absolutely an Andrew move. So it's cool, though, because that's in that group you've got people that are married to each other. In one of the most online marriages that has happened. You've got one of the most prolific, two of the most prolific, three of the most prolific, actually, now that I think about it, who's all their fan artists in the community. And some of the most frequented forum posters in the community. It's just it's amazing that a community like this is not just something that, like, I'll probably check in on DK Vine's forum for the rest of my life a little bit. I don't frequent it as often as I used to, but there are truly deep and strong interpersonal relationships that have come out of this community, and the Idaho crew is potentially the most visible example of that. And they're so fucking loud, and
they are
have very little microphone control. Just like they've been streaming and talking on microphones for a better part of a decade as part of this community, and they're like so close to learning how to talk into that fucker. And when they get there, I'll cry the tears of a proud dad.
What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna show up one day, right, with like 5 microphones, and I'm just gonna set it up for them. I mean, like, here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna be in this controlled setting now. We're gonna make sure you're all talking into a microphone rather than this communal like pit they've got. I don't even know what their setup looks like. I've only
if you told me that the potato lobby lobbied for outlawing headphones in Idaho, I would believe you. I have enough evidence to find that believable, actually.
It's all the potato lobby. All these stories you hear about the state in the news, it's the potato lobby behind it all.
Yeah, you know, because potatoes. I abort. I don't have anything to say about potatoes.
Well, you can't do that in Idaho.
Oh, snap.
I said it. Oh, no. All right. No, sincerely, though, I have to be sincere before we move on. Thank you all. Obviously, the Idaho crew represents 2 frequent Kongversation co-hosts and DK Vine artist. Cameron just did our 25th anniversary logo. Dustin has been behind the last several Kongversation album artworks. They do the holiday cards. Adam and Andrew, they manage the forum with gusto. It's a job nobody else wanted, and they stepped up to the plate. And you know what? They provide reference points for DK Vine well outside of my wheelhouse, because, you know, I'm not going to be referencing all of these obscure cartoons and whatever else the hell they talk about. I'm not going to do it. You're not going to get that from me. I'm not going to talk about Shrek, this obscure cartoon that nobody watches. But, you know, from them, it's plentiful. It's a bounty. And if that's what you're into, they can provide that. And it's good to diversify DK Vine's identity, I say.
It's good to diversify DK Vine's identity. That's why we like the Idaho crew?
Yeah. Because they bring so much diversity.
All right.
Yeah. So talking about the bad times now.
Yeah.
No, because I didn't want this to all be, man, the last 25 years have been great. Because I want to put it into perspective too. There have been challenges running a damn Donkey Kong website for so long, and the absolute worst year for me. The time I never got to the point where like I was going to give up, but I was just not having a good time. I was not looking forward to anything I was doing. It was most of 2017. Let me tell you.
That's really interesting to me, because I wouldn't have assumed.
Yeah. So for those who aren't aware, 2017 was kind of a turning point, a transitional year for DK Vine. And I mean, there were a lot of big things during that time. Ukulele came out, and which was a big discussion point that April. We had the hype for Sea of Thieves still going strong. And DK Vine, we even got in an official Nintendo book that year, an actual Nintendo authorized publication with a little seal on it and everything. I was playing with Superpower, check it out. DK Vine got a spread in there, and they interviewed me for it. We got screenshots of the website in the book, Mitchell, which...
That's cool.
I was just reflecting on this today in the inner circle, because I forget about this. I don't like self-pleasure myself by going back through, like, oh, remember when we did this? That was nice. But aside from right now, of course. But I was thinking, it's wild to me that the stuff we were able to sneak in an official book by virtue of the website getting on there. We got, like, the Banjo-Kazooie character Bottles in a Nintendo publication in 2017. We got... I had the mock-up of the game, like it was a Pokemon Go parody. I had an ad for a game called Kiddy Kong Go, where somebody was holding their phone up to a toilet and on the phone, Kiddy Kong was popping out. That got into an...
Pretty good.
Yeah. So it wasn't like all bad that year, but just personally speaking, it was very challenging for me and probably my lowest point because... that was the year after Chad left. Chad left at the end of 2016, and for the very first time, I was in charge of DK Vine 100%. I didn't have anybody to shoulder the burden with or to handle the workload. All of a sudden, I was editing all the Kongversations. I was basically trying to keep everything going as it was before he left, and I had taken on double the work. And I didn't know what I was doing. I had to learn on the fly. I had to teach myself a lot of skills that, honestly, I should have already had, but because we were a duo, like, I'd coasted on some of this stuff because that was what he handled, and I handled this, and it worked for a while, you know? But... all of a sudden I was in the deep end, and I didn't know how to swim. So it sucked. It really did suck. And it wasn't a great year by and large, just in general. And it took me probably 2 years to really, I think, find that comfort level again of... Even if I was overworked, even if I was overwhelmed, I felt like I had it. I had a handle on what DK Vine was again. In the absence of Chad, in this new uncharted era. And, I mean, it was a necessary learning experience, but God, I hated it. I don't look back.
It was a tough jump, of course, yeah.
Yeah. I don't look back at that time with much fondness at all. In fact, like... It's probably not even until 2019 where I'm like, yeah, that's when you should start listening to the podcast. That's when you should, like, start reading our old stuff. That's where I really feel like the identity of DK Vine finally crystallized into what it needed to be in the modern sense. And
if
so,
it takes 20 years to do that, that's fine. If it takes 20 years to catch your stride, you know what you just did? You caught your stride.
Here's the thing, though. This is interesting, though. As a society, we do not venerate the late bloomer enough. We're always all about child prodigies. We're always about, like, the people, the young Sheldons, if you will, where... Oh, this is a little genius. Look at this little genius. Already has everything figured out, the little genius. That's what we put up on a pedestal and celebrate in our society. But the truth is, a lot of people develop differently. A lot of people take a while to hit that stride. I'm one of them. And I'm glad. I'm glad I didn't rush it. I'm glad I didn't, like... be some sort of little, like, whiz kid who was too good for Donkey Kong journalism. No. This is where I belong, Mitchell.
Yeah, it's interesting that it was 2017 because I think it's, I always like to think about the difference between, like, how the fan base of a thing is feeling and how that thing might be doing, because in 2017 things felt like they were going incredibly well, actually, for the games. Like we got this Platonic thing where like that game, the Ukulele, finally came out. It was contentious at launch, but like it finally came out, and it was the first new like rare 3D platformer in some odd 15 years or so. That felt huge, and the Switch had just come out, and we did not yet know there wouldn't be a Donkey Kong Switch game. Didn't have reason to assume so. Turned out to be true, but at the time it felt like, of course, there was going to be one, right? And Sea of Thieves was just next year, and we just got Rare Replay wasn't too old yet, so like it felt like, oh, some of these things are going to be touched on. And I don't remember if we had advanced knowledge of the Battletoads game at this point, maybe not quite yet, but like things felt like they were happening. And Mario Odyssey, like DK Vine would not normally care about a new Mario mainline game, but there were streets named after K. Rool and all the animal buddies like that. It felt like things were finally up in a way they had not been in forever. But yeah, you know, I think that it's not like anyone at the time appreciates that it felt that optimistic. I think at the time they felt like, well, we still don't have those things we think we're going to get, and we probably won't for a while. And there's always a reason to feel down about the time period in which you're currently existing. But yeah, it goes to show that your reception and the mental fortitude you have to deal with new information is often just as important as that information and how you respond to it.
Well, and like it was a very positive time as far as like what we report on, what we discuss, what we celebrate. But like Steve points out in the live stream, we got to go to Rare in 2016.
Amazing.
I mean, like truly a highlight of my fandom. But yeah, it was just 2017 was such a fraught. When I say it was a terrible year, I don't mean as far as video games go, right? It was just a lot of uncertainty in the air during that time. Not that there isn't today, but you know what I mean. And it was just magnified all the more because I was suddenly like in charge of DK Vine by myself, and I didn't know exactly where to go. I just knew I had to keep doing it. So it got better. It got better though. That's what I'm saying. But you have to weather the storm sometimes. You know what I mean?
Do you think we're ever going to get a playable Lanky Kong again?
Here's the thing. I have to remain an eternal optimist. You, on the other hand, you can afford a little pessimism in your life. But I like to think that yes, we will have a playable Lanky Kong again. Absolutely.
Now, follow-up question. Do you think the situation in which we have a playable Lanky Kong, it'll be because there's like a playable lot of things? Or do you think we could ever promote Lanky Kong back up to like that star position?
That's what I'm going to work every day for the rest of my life towards, Mitchell.
It's worth doing.
It's worth doing. Let's go and take the next message. While we have this person in the chat, let's go ahead and play it.
Hey DK Vine, it's Steve from off of Rare Gamer, and this week I've been asked why I think DK Vine has lasted 25 years. I've looked into it, done a lot of research. I think it has something to do with somebody paying server cost and hosting. I think. But, you know, for that reason there. But on a more nebulous note, I think it has to do with the fact that it matters and it's timeless. I think those are the two elements that really bring it together to get into a more sincere note. Because if you look back at, you know, Donkey Kong in 1981, that easily could have been a footnote in Nintendo's history. 1981, they make Donkey Kong. Then Rare takes the reins in 94. They make Donkey Kong Country. They expand the lore. 97 comes along. There's Diddy Kong Racing. We build up from that. We continue expanding. And we need cartographers. We need people that are keeping track of all this lore and all this stuff that's being added to the games and keep track of it. And now, even today, Donkey Kong from 81 to 94 to 97, it's still around. I mean, we have movies now, Hollywood blockbusters. We have theme park attractions. It's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so is DK Vine. There's more pages added every day in the forums, on, the news side of things, just documenting everything, and prosthetic golfing fingers, for God's sake. So please stick around, continue bringing nonsense and documenting and cartographing, if that's a word, this massive, huge world that's being created by Rare, by Nintendo, by anybody that's had anything to do with Donkey Kong, in this across consoles and generations and lands and maps. And please continue. It's been a wild ride so far, and I hope it continues.
Thank you for the call or message. I keep saying call because it just reflects that's what my vocal cords are used to saying. Thank you for the call. Thank you for the message, Steve. Thank you for the MP3.
Did you know that call is Swedish for message?
I did not know that, Mitchell.
You still don't. It's not true.
Right. That's what I thought, because people just lie to me. People people just gaslight me constantly. So I'm going to be so distrusting in just a few years' time. You're trying to build up this hardened shell around this sweet, innocent...
Shit, man, I'm sorry.
This eternally youthful visage that you got going here. You're trying to embitter me.
Well, I thank Steve for the call, and I agree that there is something, regardless of the fact that these games all came out a long time ago, and we're very rooted in a specific 8-year period from 94 to 2002. Despite that, it's timeless. It's timeless in the way that old Disney, watch Alice in Wonderland right now, is kind of timeless, despite having still been very informed by the time period in which it was animated, or any of the great works. These are things that we care about, and these are things that I think are going to continue to be cared about, because at the core of them, they are good. And and it really just breaks down to that. They're good things.
Yeah, I agree. I think we passed the point. You said something like E3 2015, the hope that this stuff was going to come back, on the Rare side of things, like Banjo-Kazooie or what have you. And here's the thing, though. I think while, of course, they will lessen in cultural cachet if we don't get a new game at any point, I think we are past the point where there is an argument anymore over whether or not they're good. It is pretty much universally agreed they are good. And there's always going to be people coming along, even if they weren't growing up in that era. There's always going to be people who will discover it. It might not be a large number of people, but there will always be younger fans coming along and discovering it. And part of that is us keeping that flame alive. Not just us, but people like Steve, people like Amir from Rare Thief, or even Dre in the community, or DKC Atlas, true dyed-in-the-wool fans who will keep talking about this stuff, making it part of the language of our fandom. I mean, most people find DK Vine via Donkey Kong, and then maybe they're, like Freezer, exposed to something like It's Mr. Pants, and then all of a sudden It's Mr. Pants has a new fan. And that's something...
It's important not to get complacent, I guess, is another read into that. Be more like DKC Atlas and less like DKC Shrugged.
Fuck you, Mitchell. That's all. That joke made me angry.
I'm a bit of a thinker. Yeah, I'm a bit of an intellectual, so my joke's a little highbrow.
That was such a highbrow joke, and you should just feel so smug about that as we take our next message. And maybe you'll reconsider pulling something like that again. All right, let's hear what the next well-wisher has to wish.
Hello all, Malik here, part-time Donkey Kong enthusiast, full-time goofball, talking about DK Vine on such a momentous occasion. So why has DK Vine managed to last 25 years? Well, it isn't because we're swimming in new games, that's for sure. I think it just comes from sheer determination, a genuine drive to share the love for all things Donkey Kong, Rare, Playtonic, everything in between, and also the fact no one knows how to get into the nitty-gritty quite like you guys. I mean, most people can't talk about insert animal buddy here for 10 minutes if their life depended on it, and it's a miracle if they even remember their name, but I digress. DK Vine proves most others aren't trying hard enough. I mean, people can say they love a video game, but you guys show what that really means, and ironically, you don't have to try that hard to do it. You've been around this long because of how passionate you are, how passionate the community is, and I gotta say, it's pretty infectious. I've got my fingers, prosthetic or otherwise, in a lot of fandom pies, but this one, I'm the most at peace with. So here's to you, DK Vine, 25 years of absolute madness, and thanks for welcoming me into this little family of yours with open arms, and here's to many more years ahead. Bye!
Well, thank you, Malik, the cartoon gamer, everyone. Also, our second prosthetic golfing finger mention in a row.
Yeah, I wonder if there's something like in the DNA of that little bit of trivia of prosthetic golfing fingers that just feels like the thing to be magnetized to when you think about DK Vine.
I've always likened it to like nonsense poetry, where I love mashing together words that don't complement each other very well, but when you put it together, it creates an absurdist phrase that it just communicates how dumb I truly am. And I think prosthetic golfing fingers is probably my all-timer. It's probably my masterpiece, the thing that will actually outlive me when all of this is in the ground and forgotten to the strands of time. That will somehow endure somewhere in the recesses of the universe.
You know, I was having a conversation with my dad recently, and my dad doesn't play video games. He doesn't know about the game world at all, really. Other than like what I've told him about my career, basically. And there's certain terms that like I think sometimes that I'm going to be accessible in the way that I'm talking about these things, and you don't need to know all the little things in order to have a conversation. But then there's certain terms that'll come up, and I'll realize that I'm saying the phrase cutscene, talking about cutscenes, and like 5 minutes of conversation will go by, and then we'll both realize like, oh, my dad thought cutscenes were scenes that were cut before the final version of the game, so they were like canceled in development. They were cut, and I would never have thought that cutscene would like I think that I'm being generous to the person I'm talking to and not like expecting them to know a whole lot. But then I just like totally didn't realize, oh, cutscene is kind of I guess that's lingo, I guess. Prosthetic golfing fingers is something that I could see. Just give it a couple more 20 years, and I'll get to a point where like, yeah, no, we talk about prosthetic golfing fingers. You don't know about that? You don't know about prosthetic golfing fingers? I could see it.
It's basically impossible for me to have a conversation with my parents anymore. We just inhabit completely different worlds, and it's really awkward having to visit them because you run out of talking points within the first 15 minutes or so, because it's like, what do I feel comfortable talking to these two people about? Well, the weather is a safe topic, so we'll talk about the weather. Their joint pain, talk about their joint pain for a little bit. Oh no, I've run out. and now it's just sitting awkwardly for the next several hours.
I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm starting to feel that way a little bit, but you know what's always good is you just talk about whatever Taylor Swift is doing, and someone's aware of it. That's the only reason I can talk to any other people at all.
Yeah, that doesn't work for my parents, unfortunately. They're the quintessential boomers who have kept their world hermetically sealed since about 1982, I would say. Yeah.
Could be fun. Could be nice.
Trust me. I don't enjoy it. My mom just the other week asked me, because she saw the little logo, because I was wearing one of my own shirts, right? Because it was just like, I'm going up to see my parents. I'm not going to make an effort. I'm just going to put on my like orangutan shirt and go to visit. And my mom looked at the back of my shirt and she said, "What's DK Vine?"
Really?
Yeah. And I said, "Well, it's my business, Mom. What I told you about." I don't get into specifics with them. You know, it's for their own benefit. What they don't know won't hurt them. And she was like, "Oh, okay. So you make shirts?" I was like,
"That's pretty good."
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's an aspect of it. Sure, I diversify my portfolio, like my friend Mitchell.
Wait, what? You diversify your portfolio like I do, or
like you?
Portfolio.
From the beginning of the episode, we were talking about you being on the Twitch board. It was a callback to.
Oh, earlier. I don't remember things like that. Come on.
All right. Well,
1,000 hours ago.
Oh, please! You're being dramatic. But talking about something very, very long. This is our longest message of the bunch. So when you see the timestamp, it's probably going to be off, but not off by that much. This is almost 9 minutes.
Okay, I'm looking at 26 minutes and 37 seconds.
Holy God! What? No.
I don't know.
This is 9 minutes. I told people keep it a few minutes, but this one clocked in at almost 9 minutes. And you know what? Like I want to hear it. You know, because I am not one who knows how to keep it brief. So who am I to enforce that upon anybody? So let's go ahead and play this. You can get a second wind as we're starting to near the end of this episode. We're getting to the last couple of messages and the last few thoughts I have on the 25th anniversary of DK Vine. But you know, maybe cool down a little bit. You know, change your clothes, get into something more casual. We're getting into the buttoned down portion of the podcast, Mitchell.
Hi, DK crew. It's Ultra Mentality. It's Courtney. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about why I think DK Vine is such a valuable presence in the fandom space online as a whole. I was going to say, you know, the DK fandom and the rare fandom or whatever, but I honestly think it's such a great example just in general of what the idea of fandom and like dedication and community to old games or to any media really can really be. So as some of you might know, if you are a closer friend to me, I have really pulled back on being online this year. I've kind of disconnected myself from a lot of communities, and a lot of that comes from personal stuff that I don't need to get into, but some bad experiences and some cynicism that I've developed around the concept of fandom and, you know, just social media and being online and a lot of stuff like that. But when I think about DK Vine, it really is a shining example of what I wish things were just more like in general, because there's such a strong community aspect to it. And so when I first heard about DK Vine, I got DK64 the year it came out. And And, I had already been such a big fan of the Donkey Kong Country games on the Super Nintendo, and that's why DK64 is the game my parents got me as my first N64 game, along with the Jungle Green in 64, came in the bundle. So that's when I first discovered DK Vine existed, was pretty shortly after that game came out. That's when I started looking online to find out more about, video games and all that stuff. I was looking into glitches and secrets and stuff, because DK64 was so full of them. And I remember, so I guess DK Vine probably was like at most a year old, probably less than a year old when I first discovered it. But to me, it seemed so established. And it's probably just because when you're a kid, everything seems so long. Like a year feels like such an immense amount of time in your life. So I was probably looking at maybe 6 months worth of posts on DK Vine and thinking, this site it's so established. It's got such a history to it. So that was my first encounter. I remember just finding some discussion about DK64 and realizing in this process, as I looked at the internet, that I was not alone. I was this weird girl who loved Donkey Kong and all these other things, but there were other people out there in the world who loved the same things I did and who were even making art of the same things that I drew in my little childhood scribbles. And, they were making music remixes even back in the day, just making like MIDI music remixes on vgmusic.com. And there was just so much creativity and writing and discussion out there about the same things I loved. And that was the first time that I really felt seen in these things, because growing up, I always felt like sort of a weirdo for my interests. Lots of kids were into Pokemon, but that was pretty much the only big thing that I could share with other kids outside of my brother, because most kids I knew weren't into the same things I was, or at least not to the degree I was. So that community aspect became immensely important to me. And even though I didn't actually get involved with the DK Vine community itself until much later, growing up, I became a fan artist and I was involved with communities in other places. And just knowing that this group was there and that there was a website out there that cared as deeply about looking into Donkey Kong lore and connecting all of the different rare games together was just something that I found really inspiring and fascinating. And when I did start trying to get involved and join the forums and stuff, I think it was around the time Tropical Freeze came out, so maybe a little after that, mid 2010s. And yeah, I never was the most super involved person ever, but I did find a good community there. And I really enjoyed the discussions I had and the friends I made, and keeping in touch with a lot of those people afterwards. They've become people that are very important to my life and some of my dearest friends who have been there for me through a lot of ups and downs. And again, just coming back to that aspect of fandom where, to me, fandom has always been a starting point. It shouldn't be the end point. Like, if there's not a community there, then, you're just being obsessive about media, and that's fun in its own way. But, to me, the point is to make those connections with other people who you can bond with because you like the same things, and you can have those satisfying discussions with them, even if they don't see eye to eye with you, even if they don't have different opinions and, they don't agree with you on what's the actual best game or whatever, or, even if they have different interpretations about the lore or the characters or whatever. The fact is that you can make friends based on your shared interests. I've always had difficulties making friends with people just out of the blue if we don't share some kind of common ground to start with, some kind of interest that we both have in common. And so I've, made a lot of friends over the years through my common interests, but I've also reached out to people and, through fandom and through liking the same characters and stuff, and, tried to make friends with people, and then realized after some time that they didn't actually care about me as a person. They just really only cared about the character in question or the media that we both liked. And when I, could no longer make as much fan art for that or whatever, they just stopped caring about me because they never really cared about me in the first place. That sort of thing. But what I see in DK Vine is a group of people that have known each other for a long time, decades, really, in some cases, but are also always trying to grow the community and, welcome in, at this point, new people, which is going to be more and more relevant in coming years, as I hope we actually do get a new game eventually, and we'll probably have a lot of influx of new people who are interested in Donkey Kong. Maybe even more people interested in like Banjo-Kazooie someday. That'd be crazy if we got a new Banjo-Kazooie game. But anyway, and I think that I can trust DK Vine to like keep building community and to keep like putting the people first, the people who love these games and the people who made these games. That's something I've always respected, is that you always shine a spotlight on the artists, the musicians, the programmers, everyone who was involved in actually putting the work into making these games and getting their names out there. That's something that a lot of people I found don't really care about. They just sort of enjoy the surface level of the things that they enjoy, and they don't really try to dig into the process of how things were made. And it's always interesting to hear about those things, and I really admire DK Vine for bringing that to the forefront. So, I guess that's my main theme here, is that I really respect this community for being a community, for bringing people together. And I know it's, just the thesis of DK Vine is that these are more than just silly games about cartoon animals or whatever. Like, they have depth to them and they have a lot going on if you look below the surface, and a lot of connections and a lot of even like poignancy and beauty to them. But it's just amazing that these games can bring people together and make a difference in people's lives. And I think you've done such a spectacular job of keeping that spirit alive. And you have made a difference in people's lives, because like if DK Vine didn't exist, I wouldn't know some people that I really love, that I still talk to now. So thank you for that. And thank you for making me feel a little less alone and a little less weird as a child. And here's to 25 more years of doing the same thing for people all across the internet. So, cheers to you. And, here's to the future. Peace.
Okay, well, that one actually almost made me tear up. So, thank you, Courtney. Freezer just made me cry because it was mean.
Yeah. Courtney's a real bully.
Sincerely, thank you, Courtney. You spoke to some stuff that I haven't been able to articulate on this episode about, I think, why DK Vine is important to me, and it is giving people that sense of community, which maybe wasn't important to me when we first started. Maybe it was that surface level. Well, I really like Donkey Kong, and I want to talk about Donkey Kong, because Donkey Kong. But as you grow up and you grow up with it, you begin to have a different perspective. Of course, I still love the characters. I still love that surface level that you talked about, but it is both about celebrating what's going on behind the scenes, underneath the hood with the creators behind it, but it's also about fostering that sense of community with other, as we always said, like-minded weirdos, but letting people find each other around the world. One of the best things about my experience starting in 2017 going forward, coming out of the dark times and really finding my footing, was really connecting via social media. And I know social media has been a source for many of the ills in the world in the last 15 years or so, but it's also been a force of positivity. And part of that is having this connection to other people who maybe go outside of the DK Vine forum, or people who would just come to our website naturally, finding people around the world. In the live stream, we've had Cyberwolf from Brazil, and finding that there's a huge fandom for Donkey Kong and Rare in Brazil. Something I never knew. And connecting with them, and connecting with fans in Japan and elsewhere in the world, like through the language barrier, has just, it's been magnificent. It's been one of those things that I never thought would be possible in my life. And it really does like mean a lot that we can be brought together. All these disparate, different people can be brought together through a shared passion as a starting point, right? And then you get to know them better and you become friends, actual friends. And yeah, like it's been really, really joyful to see that happen, not just for myself, but for everybody else in the community who has, you know, met people and developed a relationship or married each other on our Twitch channel. So, yeah, thank you, Courtney, for helping to put that in perspective for me, I guess.
Yeah, totally. Courtney and I have had a lot of conversations about the nature of fandom, and she alluded to it in the call. And I think she brought up the idea that like it's a conflicting thing to feel good about, because on the one hand, you've got so much brain power and talent and artistry going into something that like, oh, someone else owns this idea. And maybe this is not like circling around what I'm even excited about this. And it turns out to just be a reflexive muscle rather than something you continue to enjoy. I think that is a risk that fandom can often fall into. But also, on the flippity flop, I have run a Dungeons and Dragons campaign set in the Donkey Kong Rare Archipelago with Courtney and many other members of the DK Vine community, and we had the most amazing time. And what she brought to the table, in particular, in terms of expanding, like I was DMing the thing, so I was setting up the world, but she also just brought so much world aspects that I hadn't thought of to that setup. Just a wonderful person who really lives and breathes this stuff in a different kind of way than a lot of us do, which is so cool and interesting to see and valuable to have as an aspect of fandom diversity within our group.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well said. Freezer, I'm not actually mad at your call. I'm just messing with you. Just want you to know that even though you made me sad and you hurt my feelings, I still love you. But thank you, Courtney, for the call. Sincerely. It meant a lot to hear. Josh in the chat said I should have saved that one for last. We have two more messages to play. I don't know if they're going to approach that, but they should be fun nonetheless. But before we get to that, Mitchell, I wanted to talk to you about my favorite DK Vine memory, if I may.
You may.
Because you were there, and so was Cameron.
I knew it.
And so was Jeff. Yeah.
It's all about me.
Yeah, you are the sun that I revolve around, Mitchell. But we talked about our first E3, DK Vine's first in-person E3, that is, which was E3 2015. And that started a string of 5 consecutive E3s up until the bitter end. Or at least, yeah, I know there was that one E3 that wasn't in person, but it barely counts. The last traditional E3, E3 2019. And that was a very, very special E3 for many reasons. Of course, it was...
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the E3 where Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair, this game that, flew under the radar in the mainstream, but is like almost universally beloved in our community. That was announced. We had, of course, Banjo and Kazooie get revealed for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Just a huge validating moment. I'm using that word again, validating. But not only was it something we had long wanted, but they even referenced the DKU in the trailer for that, which was just like, what the hell? What the hell? But that was also a very, very... It's a very special E3 for me because it was the one E3 I got to go to with a group, a large band, if you will. 4 of us were rooming together at that E3, what we called the E3 Love Shack in Los Angeles, which is a really nice apartment, being rented out on Airbnb illicitly, I believe, but
yeah, not legal, not supposed to have happened. It was like a perfect storm of so many different things. Like Cameron was able to come out and work with you on representing DK Vine, and Jeff was representing the Golden Sands blog post, and I was representing Super Jump magazine at that point. That was before it was like right before I was so excited about this E3 because I knew like this is my last hurrah. I'm probably not going to go to the future ones of these for completely different reasons that ended up being true. But I'm probably not going to go to future ones of these because I'm not going to be like in the press side anymore because I was going to go to grad school to learn how to make video games like 2 months after the C3. And it also was, like you said, Banjo-Kazooie and Smash, and also Yooka-Laylee was showing up in Nintendo Treehouse Live, and also this gets buried in there a little bit, but yeah, we played Battletoads for the first time at the E3.
Battletoads 2020, not Battletoads on the original NES.
Yeah, we finally elected, for reasons mostly just shits and giggles, to finally play the NES game Battletoads at E3 2019.
Yeah,
no, the new one, and it was the best time. It was the best time, all lining up right before the last time. So we got that, like it felt like how I imagined IGN or other like publications like that, but in the 90s when they were still kind of scrouty row and they were still like a guerrilla journalism thing.
Back when guerrillas were popular, yeah.
Yeah, when guerrillas were popular and they were getting really into journalism, IGN, which stands for Incredible Guerrilla News, probably not. They were probably more put together at that time than I have it in my mind, but in the nostalgia of game news from the 90s, it feels like they could have had a similar vibe to what we were doing. Like, just like we were representing three different things, in DK Vine was one of them, but we were all kind of working together. Like, what can we find out? What can we do? How can we spend a day here at this E3? I fell asleep so much. And just a beautiful time. We played a game where you were like in a shopping cart. And,
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Like someone had the ability to turn right, and the other person had the ability to scream, I think. And that was it. That's how you shopped. And I don't remember that video game actually coming out, but I think it should have. But yeah, I mean, that's just the stuff that we got to do. Having that video, I think it's so great that we have that video. It's so valuable to me, of us sitting along the couch watching that Nintendo Direct when Banjo-Kazooie is finally revealed.
Right.
That's like an all-timer. That's a pretty neat thing. I'll remember that forever.
We have that. We actually, like, one of the only string of conversation episodes where we were actually on camera and it wasn't just audio only. There, you can watch actually us presenting on YouTube around the table. I mean, very rudimentary, very scrappy, as you alluded to. But yeah, there's that whole week was just like, I love and dreaded every E3 because there was a lot of prep work that went into it, a lot of anxiety, especially if you're somebody who has chronic anxiety or, bipolar 2. Anxiety comes along with the territory when you suffer that. So, like, just a lot of, like, very, very nervous energy in the month or month and a half or 2 months leading up to it. But then when you're out there, it's just... I'm a workaholic. I don't know if you know that about me, Mitchell. Like, I'm I think I'm addicted to the grind of work, and it's not healthy. I have to have passion for the work, mind you, but when I do have passion for it, like DK Vine, you put me in an environment where work is the primary reason I'm there, and all of a sudden I have just this manic, coked out energy that I just go and I go and I go, and I do collapse. I did sleep, as you did that week. Like at a certain point, you're just like, all right, I have to take a nap because I've been going for what feels like 20 hours straight. But it really did feel like it's the closest time it's ever felt like DK Vine was almost a functioning office space. Like if we were all just working in person and like go into the office, and there's your in-person coworkers. Hey, how you doing? How was your weekend? Yeah, good. Yeah, you catch the game? Yeah, I don't like sports. Not enough lore.
We definitely would ask them if we caught the game.
The old water cooler, you know what I mean? But it was a very special time because, like, of course I had met the three. Actually, I hadn't met Jeff yet. That was the first time I met Jeff in person, in real life. But you and Cameron, I had done E3s with before that. E3 2017 with Cameron, or E3 2018 with Cameron. No, E3 2017 with Cameron. E3 2018 with you. That's right. And to have you all there together, it really just felt like the culmination of something that I've been working towards. And I feel like that's really where I started to turn the page with DK Vine, where I'm like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. Yeah, like there's no question about it now. This is me. And then the pandemic happened shortly thereafter and shut down everything, and the world got kind of funky for a bit. But I will always look back on that time, that week, that final E3 as one of the most joyful things. I would really like to replicate that at some point, but kind of hard to do, you know?
Yeah, what do you think E4 is going to be like?
As good as the fourth Pirates of the Caribbean, probably.
Ooh, I like the fifth one.
I kind of like the fourth one. Those mermaids that ate the guy. That was good.
It had silver linings, like the mermaids that ate the guy, and the costume design was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Maybe it's a great movie, actually.
All right. Well, yeah. Let's play the next message. We got 2 left. Yeah. I don't have any more preamble to that. We just need to play it.
Hi, I'm Josh Wallen from Off the Geek Critique. And as someone who has been a fan of this fan site for 24 of its 25 years, I'm probably uniquely qualified to elucidate on why exactly DK Vine has endured for so long. I mean, it's what drew me here in the first place. It's what allowed me to look back on a series of games I'd loved as a kid, and as a slightly older kid, find a whole new level of appreciation of them and fandom for them. It's what made this place special, and it's what kept me and so many others coming back to it for decades now. And that's passion. The passion that DK Vine's legendary founder had. The unique insight he brought on Rare's universe, the connective tissue that he weaved, and the work ethic, the dedication, the grit that's held this place together and given like-minded weirdos a place to have their fandom enlightened for a quarter of a century. Honestly, without the spark that I saw in this place all those years ago, I genuinely don't know if I would have found my passion, if I would have been so inspired. I don't know if TGC exists without DK Vine, but even if it would have, I know it wouldn't have been the same. So from the bottom of my heart, with a lifetime of memories at my back, thank you, Chad McKenna. And long live Clef's Wigglytuff Pokemon Bonanza!
I was waiting for it. I knew it was coming. I was like, he's building up to this joke. Yeah.
That was the first one that was shorter. The first MP3 file that looked shorter than it actually was.
Oh, wow. They're keeping you on your tippy toes.
Yeah, this one said that it was 7 seconds. So imagine my surprise when it was not that.
Yeah. Josh has become a good friend. Obviously. Josh, who discovered our website way back in the day and went on to become a far more successful internet personality than I ever did, with a far broader reach. But Josh's own YouTube channel, The Geek Critique, has brought so many people our way over the years. There's been a few like flashpoints in our existence. I would say the Chris Sutherland interview we did back in 2015 brought you to DK Vine, Mitchell.
Yeah. Just in moments like that, that's when fandom, I think, matters the most. Of like, okay, I'm already a person that wants to dedicate some time and energy to this idea. Who else is doing it? Where are people doing it? That's when it matters. And to see people come from other YouTube channels like Josh's, because they trust the sage opinions of someone like Josh, to have...
Oh!
Excuse me. I forgot what I was saying.
Mitchell, you're allergic to sage. I'm sorry.
Oh, I had a dog named Sage once.
The dog discussion on this episode is really bumming me out.
Sorry. Your dog's doing a lot better than Sage is.
Yeah, Jesus. Josh, when he started appearing on the Kongversation and started... I mean, Josh really took off with those Metroid Prime videos. And so after that, Josh being on the show, pointing people to DK Vine and the Kongversation, has really like elevated our own audience, brought more people into our neck of the woods, our community. And, I mean, that's all well and good, but the thing I value the most is my friendship with Josh. We are very similar, I think, in the way we view video games, and it's not a common thing the way we think, you know? So to have somebody like completely get it, and Josh has broader interests than I do. Josh doesn't have to dedicate himself to one particular niche thing like the DKU. But no, it's been an absolute pleasure having Josh in my life for the last decade or so. And even though we've never actually been able to hang out in person, I consider Josh one of my greatest friends. So thanks, buddy. That sounded
Josh.
sarcastic, that last bit, but I meant it. Old chum.
Well, I think that there's something to the fact that people with similar interests and similar ways of thinking about things coming together for something like DK Vine, for something like this community, is just one of the strongest things you can do with the internet. It's one of the most valuable things that we've been able to help ourselves do with new technologies. Where we're in a time period where so much of that new technology usage is, maybe not the most exciting looking thing that we've ever seen, right? To come together and to be part of a community at all is it's a blessed experience, Hyle. It's a blessed one.
Blessed, yes. I use that word. Actually, hashtag blessed is what I frequently say. You know, all my tweets end with that.
Mm-hmm. And I'm always saying spicy in that same sort of way.
Yeah, for some reason, that has become your catchphrase, even though you only ever say it when you're on the Kongversation.
And even then, not much.
No.
Just enough.
DK Buzzard in the chat says, Hyle should finish Donkey Konga 2 at some point. I know it. Mitchell just messaged me the other week, and I saw this like late at night, and I was like, I'll respond to it tomorrow, and then I forgot like until like a week later. It's like, hey, if I was in the same area as you, would you be down to play some Donkey Konga 2? Would you finish it? It's just like, okay, what? It's a weird message
that's
to get.
The thing we've always been talking about, right? Like the actual, like, let's get into it, because Donkey Konga 2 is an important part of DK Vine history, I think, at this point.
It is. Yeah.
The specific hang up, right, is that you've done everything in the single player aspect of the game, but there's some multiplayer co-op parts that need two people or one very dexterous person on two bongos, or one bongo each, I guess, right? It's only two, right? It's not up to four?
No, so Gorilla Duet mode is the mode in question, Mitchell.
Okay. Yeah, so two people. And it's just so hard to be 100% accurate with trying to spread your arms over two pairs of bongos like that. Wait. So yeah, like how hard do you think it would be if we got people together? We probably should have done it in E3 2019, but hindsight's 2020. Like, how could we have done it? Could you do it in a weekend?
The thing is, you have to get good at Donkey Konga 2 first. It's not just like, I'm just going to jump in, I'm just going to wing it.
And I'm sure you'd have to play it on like a CRT television for the exact timing, right?
Probably, yeah. So it's a challenge for sure. And the thing is, since 2017, part of the reason I haven't gotten back to it is because my workload for DK Vine is so heavy. I don't really have time to just like sit down and play Donkey Kong games in my leisure time, because Donkey Kong games are full-time work for me. And so when I finally get to break away, I'm like, I don't want to touch a video game right now. I want to do something else, like read a book or go hiking up a mountain. I don't want to sit around with the bongos.
Okay, so that stuff's lame though. So for Donkey Konga 2, it's how many songs are remaining, or is it like that for every song in the game?
There's a handful. I forget. I think there's like 12 songs I need to clear in Gorilla Duet mode. And you can play it single player with the CPU, but then the game penalizes you to the point where you have
the CPU doesn't get all the stuff, yeah. Okay.
Well, the CPU is like basically good enough, but you, the player, have to be perfect.
So if there's two people though,
yeah,
and they're both like pretty good, that should be it though, right? Like
I don't know. I'm not sure what the rubber banding is like, but in theory, yes, that has been the biggest problem, is not having a cohort for Donkey Konga 2.
Yeah, if we're ever hanging out together again, or if you're ever in Idaho, I feel like there's just a good opportunity. It's a nice thing to keep on the back burner of like, oh, if and when there's an in-person thing ever again, we know one thing that we should be excited to do.
Sure. Yeah, like the thing is, every time I go back to visit my parents, I would somehow find another set of DK bongos, and I'd be like, I didn't buy this many DK bongos. Where are they coming from? And I feel like that's the universe punishing me for never finishing Donkey Konga 2. It's like that game of Jumanji that Robin Williams started as a kid, and then they never finished it. Bonnie Hunt ran off.
Yeah, Monopoly.
yeah, it's about as long as the game of Monopoly. Anyway, we have one more message to take. And I prepared a speech for the end of this episode. I hope you don't mind.
I hope so too.
All right. It might be a good one. I don't know. It's only going to be like 40 minutes long, so you don't have much longer to deal with this. But let's play our last message from our last well-wisher.
Hello, it's me, occasional DK Vine contributor and occasionally fun guy, Matt Corner. Hyle Russell has asked me to record a brief message explaining 1. Who I am, and 2. Why I think DK Vine has survived for 25 years! The first question is easy. Here is my biography. I am from Britain. The second question is a bit more complicated. So, I have decided to answer it in the form of an audio word cloud, aka a cacophony of nonsense.
Big old Donkey Kong Universe Castle. Man! Top 10 DK News, Arts Academy Awards. Mario Bros. Hitler's Luckies. DK Radio. Bias. Donkey Kong Jungle. Poetry Slam. DK Chance. Smash Culture of the Week.
Should have been Metroid Vine. Yep, I think that about covers it. Keep up the smashing work, you lovely boys and girls. Bye! Will that do, Hyle?
Yes, Matt, that was fine. That was adequate. Thank you.
Sounds like an Idaho crew live stream.
I don't know, I can make out a little bit more from that one.
Truly beautiful. Truly beautiful work, Matt.
Honestly, Matt, there's so many little bits in there that I've mentioned before. I have like the trailer blindness whenever I see like a video game trailer for the very first time. I'm terrible at absorbing all of the little details. There's so many elements baked into that. I'm going to call it an audio casserole that I'm eager to go back and try to figure out each little element from our history in there. I heard the Regal scream for sure, but wow, that was a work of art. Thank you, my friend. Matt is a lovely, lovely person. Matt, many of you don't know. Matt has kind of been my right hand, my rock even, for the site, for keeping the site running behind the scenes. Whenever there's a technical issue, Matt and I will try to crack it. Matt has really saved my ass time and again. And I will, in my entire life, never be able to repay everything Matt's done for me. So I'm choking up now because I love Matt so much.
Yeah, it hasn't happened a whole lot recently, but the very first time I was ever even on a podcast, I think it was an episode of very discontinued podcast, The Forum Watch, in which we talked to Matt about his creation of the Acorn People generator, the Acorn character generator.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a whole podcast episode out of that, and that was great. He's always down for a conversation about his Acorn person generator.
That is the charm that Matt has brought to DK Vine. And the greatest thing about getting that firewall up at the beginning of this year was the Acorn person generator works now. Because the AI bots that were trying to like skim all of our images and resources, it was keeping that from properly loading. And we got the firewall up, and lo and behold, AI isn't trying to steal the Acorn people from the generator anymore. So
their loss.
Yeah. Oh my God. So I actually didn't like listen to any of those ahead of time. I just arranged them in a random order. It's kind of like trying to make a playlist or something. And I like didn't give anybody any preferential treatment, but I knew I wanted to put Matt last just because I thought maybe Matt would do something like that. And yep. So, Mitchell, thank you for being on this episode with me.
Thanks for having me. Seriously, this place, this DK Vine place, is truly important to me. I've been trying to be the color commentary guy this episode, I suppose. But this is a place that means a lot to me. It's an important vestige of a bygone era of the internet that should not be antiquated, but unfortunately is. And I can only hope that people continue whatever it is they might be into, even if it's not anything to do with Donkey Kong, that people continue to use these sorts of communities and this sort of allowance of the internet to create something at least very similar to what's been created here. It's special. It deserves to exist. It deserves to be celebrated. And I can only hope for another 25 after this one. Imagine that. Imagine DK Vine getting to 50 years.
Well,
and we might be ready for Donkey Kong Country 7.
Yeah. Really quick, I want to say hello. Jordan Freeman joined us in the live stream. Hello, Jordan. Or Jordan says, thank you for your service, Hyle and Mitchell. I guess you could call it service. I don't know. But
you're welcome for your service.
You said it was antiquated. You said like DK Vine is the product of a bygone era. And I mean, it's true. I'm not going to dispute that. DK Vine wasn't supposed to last 25 years, Mitchell. That was never part of the plan. Not that we ever had an end in mind or even a particular goal when we launched it back in 1999, because we were just kids who were really, really excited about Donkey Kong 64 coming out in 3 months' time. And we wanted to have a platform where we could bring people who were also excited about it together, like our own home base, to discuss it and the broader Donkey Kong universe and Rare's shared world. But it felt like a vital necessity at the time to do so, with maybe a tinge of spite and bitterness in the brew. Because, Mitchell, the world of Nintendo fandom in 1999 looked quite different from what it had been just a year prior. In August of 1998, you still had the residual good vibes of Donkey Kong Country Mania. You were just coming off of Diddy Kong Racing, which came out of nowhere at the end of 1997, and it worked in both Banjo-Kazooie and Conker as sneaky Donkey Kong spin-offs before they even had their games out. And it made the potential feel limitless for what Rare was capable of doing and how far this world could expand. And then Banjo-Kazooie came out halfway in 1998, and that felt like the last time that Rare really controlled the Nintendo fandom zeitgeist, which had been a streak that had more or less been unbroken for close to 4 years, minus maybe the launch of the N64 in 1996. But the autumn of 1998 marked a turning point because it saw the arrival of something in the West that would dominate the landscape of gaming, of geek culture, of childhood from that point on. Pokemon came out in the US. And then November also brought The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. And all of a sudden, Nintendo message boards and all of the playground chatter, they were no longer talking about which Brothers Bear was best, which Diddy Kong Racing Star was going to get their own game next, or what we thought that the ice key and eggs would do in Banjo-Tooie. And it was the first time that I realized that the things that I may love as a kid wouldn't just be persistently popular going into the future. That taste would evolve, and new things would come along and capture future generations' imagination. And I think part of me wanted to preserve the waning magic of that moment, the feeling of euphoria and joy we got from Donkey Kong Country's initial release, from Diddy and Dixie's rise to their starring roles, from the shock of Diddy Kong Racing and the embrace of Banjo-Kazooie and Conker, to sort of hoard it all in a bomb shelter like some sort of unhinged prepper, like I imagine the Idaho crew actually are, and make the good vibes of my own childhood last a little bit longer. And I do think that's why DK Vine itself has lasted. And I'm not going to just sit here in this speech and huff my own ass. I don't want to do that. I don't like doing that. I feel weird and gross self-aggrandizing this much. DK Vine is still pretty small. Some of our calls alluded to this. It's smaller than I would like it to be, sure. We are still a mostly unknown entity in the broader scheme of things. And I am overworked. I'm juggling way too much. And sometimes I feel like it's a losing battle. But each year since 2010 has seen the site grow just a little bit, bringing in a little bit larger of an audience. We're currently in the middle of our biggest and best year yet. And so there's obviously something to all of this madness, or it would have been shuttered decades ago. And trying to reflect on what that is, the very question I asked everybody who sent in a message for this episode, I came to the realization that it's in that initial mission I had, even if I didn't realize it at the time. Keeping the spirit of the golden era of the Nintendo Rare partnership alive, but also letting that spirit evolve. Like one of those pesky Pokemon that stole all of my glory back in the late 1990s. We're not just sitting around railing about how much better things were back when Chad and I were kids, or when the Idaho crew were kids, or when Jeff was a kid, which was, I don't know, just last week, according to his lying horse mouth. I love you, Jeff. The spirit and the mentality stay the same. But we adapt with the times, with that spite filtered out. You know, DK Vine is multi-generational. It's multi-generational now with an international reach across borders and language barriers. And yet that same spark, the same distilled giddiness of learning about a new game or of losing oneself in a fictional world full of endless possibilities, and of pulling up and celebrating the obscure and overlooked, that's still burning the same as it was in 1999. Because these games, concepts, and characters, they deserve to be celebrated. I've never been one to just sit back and accept the broader gaming media's narrative about things. And if what we do makes people consider an overlooked gem, like, say, it's Mr. Pants, or even look at something like Donkey Kong Country 3 in a new light, then yeah, fuck yeah, it was worth it. And if we can provide an amplified voice to the people out there who already adore things like Star Fox Adventures, or Grab by the Ghoulies, or Saber Wolf, DK King of Swing, Donkey Kong Country Barrel Maze, then I'm glad we can be that megaphone and that community for people to find each other, to find their kin separated by geographical distance. And if we can do that while being a force for positivity, making a community on the internet that's actually full of love and acceptance for each other, then all the better. I mean, it took a bit to get there, to really figure that out. And I'll always be striving to become a little bit better myself, as I will for DK Vine. But co-founding the site 25 years ago, working it more or less full-time for the last 14 years, being sole editor-in-chief of it for the last 8, and doing it as my actual job for the last 10 months, it's been a privilege. An exhausting, odd, sometimes exhilarating, and occasionally demoralizing privilege, yes, but at this point I have no intention of ever throwing in the towel. And yeah, maybe it's a sunk cost fallacy, but I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't love it. And I really, really love my job. And it gives me an outlet for creativity, for community, and for, I don't know, maybe reaching a kid like me once upon a time wishing for a place like this online. And now that Donkey Kong has renewed cultural cachet and is actually gaining in popularity again, it feels like after a quarter century, we're finally starting to come full circle again. Full circle to the time period just before DK Vine launched. And maybe that means this job will become a little bit easier, or maybe it's about to get a whole hell of a lot busier and more stressful. But if that's the case, I can always just pop a few more pills to keep going. Mitchell, I call them calf tabs because that's cuter than a caffeine pill. Would you like a calf tab, Mitchell? I got my calf tabs right here. Would you like one?
Ooh, I'd love one.
Okay,
I'd love one.
Here. Should not be doing that.
I just realized that Everwild has been announced for 20% of DK Vine's life.
Yeah, that's good. That's my fourth calf tab for the day. So that news is really good to keep me going until about 4 a.m. Anyway, thank you again, Mitchell, for being my co-host on this episode. And honestly, I said this for so many of our well-wishers on this episode, but thank you for your friendship. And dare I say your wisdom. You're a wizened soul, Mitchell.
Thank you, Hyle. It's truly a privilege to be here. I said it before, but I mean it. Let's see another great 25 additional years of DK Vine.
Cool. Well, I'm not done thanking people yet. So hold on.
Okay.
Maybe it will take 25 years by the end of it.
I'll take a walk. I did my part. I did my part at the end of the show.
Yeah, you can go. I'd also like to extend a sincere thanks to all of the creators, past and present, at Rare, at Playtonic, Nintendo, Retro Studios, Payon, and all of the other studios who have contributed to any game that winds up on our holy DKU list. Thank you for humoring us. As the call said, thank you for not kink-shaming us. And if you do mock us, thank you for only doing it behind our backs. And also a sincere thank you to the former and current DK Vine staff and contributors for adding so much to the tapestry of the site over the last 2.5 decades. Ozzy Ben, Andre Summers, the new staff, Mark, aka Vladimir, David, Matt, Joe, Cameron, Jeff, Nick, Dustin, Jem, Adam, Andrew, sometimes Tate. I don't really have a read on Tate. Tate's part of the Idaho crew, but it's like sometimes Tate's there. Tate, I'm including you. And of course, thank you to Chad, who co-founded the site with me, and as I sometimes think in my more egocentric moments, was the Lennon to my McCartney for so many years. And I'm sure he would say he's the McCartney, and we would fight about that, but it can be left up to interpretation. There can be more than one McCartney if my history of overanalyzing everything for clues has taught me anything. Thank you to our friends who also contributed their thoughts to this episode. Miles Cotbox, Grunt, Freezer, Chris Alcock, Deadeye Dre, Steve from off of Rare Gamer, Malik, the Cartoon Gamer, Courtney, Ultra Mentality, and Josh Wallen, aka The Geek Critique. And finally, thank you to everyone in the live stream who's joined us, everyone who's listening to this episode after the fact, to all of our audience here on the Kongversation, and all of our faithful readers, forum members, and viewers over the years. I would probably do this every last minute, every single day, even if I was just screaming into the void. I would do it all over again. But having you all here with me makes my inanity a lot easier to live with. And I think you're right, Mitchell. I think I can do another 25 years easily. But there better be a new Donkey Kong game or a Banjo-Kazooie game or something before DK Vine's 50th anniversary, because I just... I'm cracking up!
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.